ready for a major speech.
This is a special edition of The Pulse, the Democratic Senate debate. Live from our Fox 2 studios, here's Roop Raj.
And good evening and welcome to Studio C for the Democratic Senate debate. It's a chance for the two candidates to make their final pitch as to why they are the ones who can go up against Republican Mike Rogers. Now, this is a race the whole country is watching, and control of the upper chamber of Congress is on the line tonight. Now, we should mention this debate is an hour long. The first half hour is on both Fox 2 and our streaming platform, Fox Local and Fox2Detroit.com. The second half is exclusively streaming on Fox Local. So have your phone ready. We'll have a QR code at the end of the first half hour that'll take you right to the stream, or you can just log on to Fox2Detroit.com and be ready for that second half hour. Now for the rules. Candidates will get a minute opening statement and up to a minute 30 to answer any question I decide to ask. The candidates will not address one another directly, but if statements are made about another candidate on stage about a policy point or a direct accusation, that candidate will get up to a 1-minute rebuttal. But to both the candidates, a little note: the more you make accusations, the more time you're handing over to your opponent. So let's have a productive debate that highlights what you want to do, not what the other candidate can't do. There's too much on the line, too much on the table, and people deserve substance over punches tonight. Now, I want to welcome the two Democratic U.S. Senate candidates, former Wayne County Health Director Dr. Abdul El-Sayed and Congresswoman Haley Stevens. To both of you, we give you a warm Fox 2 welcome. We thank you for being with us. We're taking your questions, by the way, via text, and many of those will be asked in the second half hour. Send them to 248-200-5042 or scan the QR code on your screen. The last time we did this, the system almost crashed. So many of you have questions. We know more of you will, so get on that as soon as you can. Dr. El-Sayed, you get the first opening statement tonight.
Roop, studio audience, folks watching at home, I am so grateful to be here. My name is Abdul El-Sayed. I'm a doctor. I became a doctor because I go 15 minutes from where I grew up and travel a difference of 10 years difference in life expectancy. Instead of practicing clinically, I went into public health, rebuilt Detroit's health department, led Wayne County's Department of Health, Human and Veteran Services. We did things like put glasses on kids, took on corporate polluters, made sure that our kids weren't breathing the worst coming out of smokestacks, and eliminated medical debt. But I'm running because it just shouldn't be this hard. I've been down to 110 different cities, 475 public events. I could go to a living room in Lansing. I could be in a church in Detroit. No matter where I go, people tell me I need to be able to afford my groceries. I need to be able to afford my gas. I need to be able to see a doctor when I get sick. My friend is going to frame this race about me and her. It's not about that. It's about you. It's about what you deserve. It's about you deserving a politics that's not bought off by the same corporations picking your pocket at every single turn. I'm looking forward to the conversation about how we get money out of politics, put money in your pocket, and pass Medicare for all.
Thank you, Dr. Abdul El-Sayed. Next up, Congresswoman Haley Stevens, you have 1 minute for your opening statement tonight.
Well, thank you to everyone tuning in tonight. As we know, the stakes of this race couldn't be higher. Costs continue to go up. Our health care, voting rights, civil rights, it's all on the line, in addition to Social Security and Medicare. And if Mike Rogers wins this race, all goes by the wayside. Look, Michigan deserves a senator who can win and who can deliver. I'm the only one on this stage who has flipped a Republican seat, and I was named Michigan's most effective Democratic lawmaker in Congress because my only focus is you. Abdul is running for celebrity. Republicans are propping up his campaign, and Mike Rogers just the other day said in a secret phone call that he makes it easier for him to win, that he's the one he wants to run against. Look, this isn't about the DC or New York influencer crowd. This is about putting Michigan first, and I've got the receipts to do that, which is why Governor Whitmer and so many others are joining my campaign to win in November.
Congresswoman Dr. El-Sayed, thank you both for your opening statements. Listen, just want to give you an idea of how we're going to do things a little bit differently from other debates where perhaps it's a little more formalized. This is going to be a conversation where I'm the moderator. I'll ask you questions. The time cues will be given by me. No clocks here. So let's go, and we'll begin with this. So many people have questions about affordability. It's the number one thing we hear about from people. What are they doing in Washington to make sure that life is more affordable for me? Dr. El-Sayed, what are you doing that's something that perhaps we haven't heard before in Washington that's different to keep the cost of living down?
So let me just tell you, for me, it's I don't take money from the corporations who are jacking up your prices in the first place. When you're bought off by DTE and Blue Cross and Big Pharma and Big Tech and APAC, don't be surprised that there's a pro quo that comes with that quid. That money doesn't just fall off trees. $60 million from outside organizations in this race didn't just come from nowhere. It's because those exact same organizations expect something on the other side, and that's that they get to expect to own your next U.S. senator. So it starts with being able to say, I'm the only candidate in this race who doesn't take any money from corporations. Never have, never will. And then from there, I actually can stand up to them. I can do things like enforce our antitrust policies that haven't been enforced. I can do things like tax billionaires their wealth so we could take that money and invest it in you and your kids, in your schools. I can do things like make sure that rather than sending your money somewhere else to drop bombs on other people and their kids, we can keep that money here at home. And just in case you don't believe me, just think about this. Just last week, our friend here voted to send $3.3 billion of your tax dollars to a foreign government. That is the pro quo that comes with the quid of $30 million spent by AIPAC. So it really comes down to how are you funded?
Dr. El-Sayed, thank you. Congresswoman Haley Stevens, we heard a lot from Dr. El-Sayed. Some of that was about your record in Washington. I want you to be able to address that, but also tell us what you would do to keep the cost of living down.
Yeah, our affordability crisis is choking us out here in Michigan. You know, everywhere I go, if it's at the fish fry in downtown Detroit, or the working single mom who just the other day told me her health care costs continue to go up, that the grocery bill is only getting harder. We don't need lip service. We need action. And Abdul's going to talk about where employees from certain corporations are spending their money, but let me tell you about what I am doing. Because DTE and our utility companies are selling out their ratepayers, and I'm giving them an option. I'm saying DTE, either stop raising rates or lose your federal funds and cut executive pay. Look, we need proven fighters in these positions, and that is what I have done time and time again. I've got the receipts to show it, and this is also why Governor Whitmer and A.G. Nessel, you know, two proven fighters who want to see results, have endorsed me in this race, because Michigan, it needs a workhorse in the United States Senate, sleeves rolled up, ready to tackle our problems on day one.
15.
And I'm not just stopping there. Let's lower the costs of groceries with my bill, no tariffs on groceries.
I do want to get into the weeds a bit with this, because I want to ask you a very direct question that so many people ask us. Are these folks getting money from big utility? Congresswoman Haley Stevens, are you taking money for your campaign from DTE or consumers?
No, but let me say this, Roop. I have been transparent. I have been transparent throughout this campaign, and let me just say this, that the only thing that ever motivates my work is the people of Michigan, the people who I hear from. You know, my opponent is on these big podcasts. You know, he's running a podcast himself. These folks are making fun of the way I sound, but yet I sound like the people who need help, who are talking to me about what they need
Congresswoman,
done.
that was a follow-up to ask the direct question, whether you're taking money from utilities
and I
or
said
not.
no.
The answer is no. Thank you. Dr. El-Sayed, I'm asking you the same question. Any money from anyone that we don't know about?
No and never, but then $40,000 in direct receipts to her campaign from DTE's corporate PAC. And then there's, I don't know, Center for Democratic Priorities, which released its funders, but then they're behind these shell organizations, these 501c4s. So I'd really like to revisit that question, because I don't know how to explain $40,000 directly to her campaign from DTE. I'm the only candidate in this race who's never touched a dime of corporate PAC money.
I do want to ask both of you about your campaigns respectively when it comes to certain questions that people have. Congresswoman, we'll begin with you, and we'll dive right into that right now. You've heard many people ask the question about AIPAC, and it seems as though on many instances you haven't directly answered the question. Do you see why some people are bothered by the fact that so much money, $40+ million, has come from AIPAC for these PACs to talk about you and to promote you and to put you up as their candidate?
Yeah, and I appreciate the question, Roop, because this moment in this country and here in Michigan, people have every right to be frustrated about our campaign finance system. My opponent here on this stage, Abdul, he's got a super PAC that his father-in-law funds that has millions of dollars going into it. And look, in terms of foreign policy, You know, Abdul and I do differ. I believe in a two-state solution. He has attacked me by name for purporting that the people of Palestine and the people of Israel deserve to live side by side peacefully. The goal is always long-term peace. And also, the Prime Minister of Israel has attacked me by name. They both represent the extremes. Look, Michiganders want peace. They deserve to see peace, and that is where I have always cast my vote, and that is the work that I want to do for Michigan in the U.S. Senate.
Specifically about AIPAC money, more than $46 million has been spent on AIPAC spending to back your campaign. A lot of people wonder if that is something where you're going to do their bidding should you win this seat. Is that something people should be concerned about? And if not, why not?
Absolutely not, Roop. Look, I have been very clear, consistent, and transparent, and I have continued to be. I want to see long-term peace. I want to see a two-state solution. I am deeply proud to represent one of the largest Jewish populations in a congressional district in the country. This is a community that I have grieved alongside, that I've mourned alongside, and have fought to bring the hostages home. And I'm still working to get us to long-term peace.
But no concern about the $46 million+ spent on the behalf of AIPAC that should worry people about perhaps you doing their bidding should you win the seat?
Well, I don't think there's much difference between super PACs going in for Abdul or super PACs going in for me. We have a problem with campaign finance reform in this country. I have an A grading from End Citizens United. I have been endorsed by Defend the Vote. I have voted consistently, and I'm going to stop Mike Rogers from getting anywhere close to the United States Senate, which is why he doesn't want to run against me, and which is why somebody like Governor Whitmer is supporting me in this race.
Congresswoman Stevens, thank you. I want to give some equal time here to Dr. El-Sayed, and specifically I want to talk to you a little bit about this geopolitical weight that we all feel in this community, which is about the Israel-Palestine issue. It obviously has colored this election greatly. It colors the Democratic Party. How do you see yourself moving forward, should you become a senator here, handling the situation with Iran, Israel, and Hamas?
So I just want to say the difference between us is $46 million of AIPAC spending. They've set a record in this race to help elect my opponent because they know that she'll be a reliable vote, just like she took last week to send your tax dollars to a foreign government that is aiding, arming, and abetting the very people who want to foreclose on the possibility of Palestinian self-determination. Look, at the end of the day, my job is to take care of you here. I want to be your U.S. Senator. I want your tax dollars spent in Michigan to provide schools in Michigan, to build health care in Michigan, to build roads in Michigan. And I think that money sent over there to kill kids and women is the worst use of our tax dollars. And yet, that's exactly what $46 million in spending will buy you. And I believe deeply that we have a responsibility to make sure that we don't make other people's problems worse. So I believe in equal rights to peace, dignity, and self-determination for Palestinians and Jewish Israelis alike. I believe that we should not be fighting stupid wars that AIPAC wants us to fight in the first place. And I believe we have a responsibility to keep our money here, to invest here. That really is the difference. We're being outspent in this race 12-1. Chances are you're going to see an ad, probably 2 of them, on behalf of AIPAC for my opponent in the next commercial break. That's what that buys you, lying about a record around President Obama's endorsement or lying about me and my character. But that's exactly what happens when you stand up and say, maybe Palestinians should have rights too, and maybe we should have rights to our tax dollars here at home.
Dr. El-Sayed, I'm going to give Congresswoman a chance to respond, as you made a couple of accusations there about her record. Go ahead, Congresswoman.
Well, as I said, I have been transparent, and that is why I have released my full tax returns, and Abdul still hasn't. We need to ask him, what's he hiding? What are the Republicans going to uncover in the general election that they will use against him? I am the only non-millionaire in this race. I have been recognized as an effective Democratic lawmaker who, yes, governs in a clear, consistent way on complex challenges. I am beholden to the people of Michigan, the people who I hear from when I am in the grocery store line, people who've broken down in tears asking me how we can address this affordability crisis. And that is what I am doing. That is what I will do on day one. And I have the receipts to prove it. Dana Nessel agrees with me.
Dr. El-Sayed, I do want to ask you a question about the tone and the tenor of this campaign. It is safe to say that everyone from Washington to Washington Township in Michigan are sick and tired of people pointing fingers, screaming, yelling, and insulting one another. We've seen a lot of that all across the country. Just earlier this week, we heard that there was some kind of a Zoom call in which you had referenced an opponent as ogre on a pike, and so many people took offense to that. And it really pointed to the bigger question about the tone and tenor that you've been accused of having in this campaign. Do you regret any of the comments that you've made? And do you think that this race could take a more productive and a more substantive tone if we kept those personal slams out?
Look, I took to Twitter last week and said that the tone in which people talk about my opponent is unkind, and I asked anybody who supported me to not talk about her that way. In fact, when she got booed on the stage at the Michigan Democratic Party convention, I called her personally and said that that was unkind. My supporters had nothing to do with it, but I don't think that that's the way we want to do politics. I was referring to a guy named John Fetterman, who's a senator from Pennsylvania, who has done terrible things, got elected on a set of values, and is now completely throwing those values in the mud. And I do think it's important for any senator in Michigan to have a relationship with folks who are in the U.S. Senate, and if those folks are not actually acting in accordance with what they got elected on, I think it's important for all of us to have an honest opinion about what we're going to do to make sure that our Senate looks like the people it represents. But when we talk about unkindness, I also just want to speak to the fact that on behalf of my opponent, UDP, another name for AIPAC, has been running attack ad after attack ad after attack ad on my character. I'm the father of 2 daughters. I'm raising them to be stronger than any man. My wife is a doctor. My mother was the first tenured professor of engineering at her university. I was raised by strong women. To say that somehow, because I wrote an op-ed 15 years ago about First Lady Michelle Obama, or I ran against Governor Whitmer, that somehow I'm disrespecting anybody is just inconsistent with the truth. So I really think it's important for my opponent to speak to why she thinks it's okay to spend $10 million of AIPAC money coming after my character. I'd love to understand that, because I went on Twitter and I said that those comments are unkind. I'd like to see the same thing.
Congresswoman, we're going to get to some questions from our audience in just a moment, but Congresswoman, I do want to give you a chance to address that civility issue that is lacking severely in American politics. Is this something that the ads that you see on television, whether you paid for them or whether someone else paid for them, do you think they're doing an injustice to voters by just filling the room with vitriol and hate and not getting to the issues?
Well, look, there was something else that was revealed in the phone call that Abdul was mentioning, which is that he said that he's not going to be able to get much done, that he's not focused on policy for the first 2 years that he is in the United States Senate, that he's going to be focused on national politics. Again, Michigan needs a workhorse, and I am offering these ideas on day one.
Congressman, respectfully,
yes. Oh,
I do want to answer the question.
It's
about civility.
It's about civility. Transparent about what is being said here. And look, Abdul's a great guy. He's a great father. You know, only he can account for saying that, you know, Whitmer's bought and paid for, or that, you know, no one cares about Debbie Stabenow, or that Mallory McMorrow isn't smart enough. You know, that is certainly on him to respond to, which we certainly just did hear from him on that.
Can I
Dr. El-Sayed, you have a quick minute here.
Look, I told you at the outset that my opponent was going to make this race about me and her. But this is about you. This is about whether or not you deserve a politics of the people, by the people, and for the people, or of the corporations, by the billionaires, and for the special interests. In an effort to talk about civility, I just took another attack. And I just want you to ask yourself, what is it that you deserve from your politics now? Do you deserve a politician more focused on their opponent because they want to be in a seat? Or do you deserve a politics where we're all asking, how do we actually serve you best? Because that's what I'm focused on here in this debate and been focused on for this entire 15-month campaign that we've been running on.
Well, and thank you for clarifying that you didn't call me an ogre.
No, again, for the record, it was Mr. Fetterman that was apparently called an ogre in the call, not you. However, I do want to get to some audience questions as well. It's time to take questions from our studio audience. We want to remind you that we are taking your questions at home as well. Just scan the QR code on your screen or text it to 248-200-5042. Make sure you tune in at 8 o'clock to stream Fox Local on fox2detroit.com. These candidates will be answering your questions. But right now we begin with Hannah, who is a voter who's here today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. So what I wanted to ask was, compared to neighboring states, Michigan consistently ranks among one of the worst for power reliability and rate affordability. As hotter summers and severe storms strain our infrastructure, what federal policies or grid investment standards will you champion to ensure Michigan residents get reliable, affordable power?
We'll begin with Congresswoman Haley Stevens for an answer on that.
Yeah, well, and Hannah, thank you so much for asking such an important and palpable question to so many Michiganders. It has been deeply frustrating to see Donald Trump get rid of the clean energy tax credits. It has been deeply frustrating to see our utility bills go up and up and up. These companies do not care about the ratepayers, and they are selling us out. I am not offering lip service to this issue. I'm offering a solution, which is to say to these companies, either lower the rates or lose your federal funds. Look, I voted for the infrastructure bill. I secured funds for us back here in Michigan. I want to do more of that, passing the largest climate bill in the history of this country. Donald Trump's trying to erase it. We need a science-forward agenda, delivering for us, meeting the moment for who our families are, what our children deserve, and that's why I'm running for United States Senate.
Hannah, we have an answer from Dr. El-Sayed as well.
Anna, thank you so much for such an important question. I just want to speak directly to what's happening right now. You've got DTE, which is the biggest spender in our entire politics. They spend on 93% of the entire elected state legislature, as well as most of our congresspeople, including my colleague here. And that allows them to get away with things like building one of the largest hyperscale data centers in our state in ex parte approval. Now, that's fancy terms for saying approval without actually going through the normal process. And this is going to increase the load on our grid by more than twice. Now, we just lost our power for 5 days in a row because of a mid-level storm. We need to do a lot better. To me, it's about transparency in policymaking. People should not be able to take that money and then turn the other cheek and then allow for these approval processes that aren't approval processes at all. I still have yet to see a plan from DTE about how they're going to improve our reliability while doubling, more so, the amount of electricity they're expected to provide for a data center that nobody asked for. I put out a terms of engagement because these data centers, that was one of 15 that proposed last year alone. We need to be serious about the incoming threat that's going to make all of this so much worse.
Thank you both, and thank you, Hannah, for your question. I want to address both of the candidates, and by the way, we are going to get to some text message questions as well from all of you at home. But I want to talk specifically about your campaigns, and I think it's noteworthy that one of the reasons we're doing this debate is to contrast the two of you, where you stand on so many issues, but also on how you go about doing your business, how you campaign. Dr. El-Sayed, I'll begin with you. The Democratic Socialists of America have not made an endorsement in this particular race, but when you go to our rally, and we've covered so many of them are from that organization. Who are you when it comes to your political stripes? Many people call you progressive. Some have accused you of being a socialist. Not that that's a bad word, but people have said that about you. Where do you stand on your politics? How would you describe your politics?
Rup, I'm a doctor and a scientist. I want policy solutions that actually map to the problems that we face. My governing experience is rebuilding a health department in the city of Detroit, leading Wayne County's Department of Health, Human, and Veteran Services. We had to go in there and work with a diverse community to be asking, what are the challenges we face and how do we actually solve them? We were able to identify the fact that our county ranked the number 8 for medical debt nationwide, and we could eliminate that for a penny on the dollar. So we set aside $7 million to erase up to $700 million in medical debt. When kids couldn't get glasses, 30% of them would get tested positive for needing glasses and wouldn't get a pair. We put optometrists on vans outside of schools so that as soon as a kid got a positive test, they'd go out, get a full optometric exam, and get a pair of glasses delivered within 2 weeks of a vision test. Now, working with a diverse community of people, you come to realize that not every solution fits the same way. You've got to be thinking about a solution in the right way. When it comes to the question of socialism, I'm not a socialist. I'm just a capitalist who understands how capitalism works. The biggest threat to capitalism was never the idea of government regulation. It was always monopoly. I want you to think about the stuff that you have to buy, whether it's your groceries and the number of stores you can go to, or it's buying a flight to see your grandmother, or it's picking a phone or a phone provider. You have like 2 or 3 options, and that shouldn't be legal, but that's the way our economy works right now. So I think government ought to be there to regulate on monopolies and oligopolies so that everybody can actually participate in an economy without having to be forced to pay more or get paid less for the work they do.
Congresswoman Stevens, Liz, another question about your campaign. We've seen just in the last few days, of course, Senator Sanders, we've seen AOC, and we've seen Elizabeth Warren just today, and they're all behind Abdul. These are the people who worked with you in the same room, have watched you for your 4 terms. Should that concern voters that they're taking the outsider's side in this case? You have a minute and a half.
Well, I think that we should look at the fact that Brenda Lawrence, my longtime mentor and dear friend, Congresswoman from Oakland County representing Detroit, has been an early endorser of mine in this race alongside Governor Whitmer, Senator Stabenow, Senator Peters, who, like myself, has been recognized as the most effective lawmaker for our state. But let me be really clear right now, because I'm going to tell you what kind of politician I am. I am Michigan's manufacturing geek, okay? I have visited hundreds of small to mid-sized manufacturing shop floors. I have operated CNC machines in my life previous to being in elected office. I have a deep passion for the bread and butter of our state and a unique understanding of it. So when Donald Trump and Mike Rogers go to lick the bootstraps of China and start a trade war with Canada, screwing us over and selling us down the river, I will be standing up for us and securing things like what I did with the CHIPS and Science Act to deliver for our youth and equity and inclusion that is so very important to our future. Jobs for everyone, lower costs, and yeah, stop these abuses of power that are coming down from Trump and Rogers, who are treating it like the stock trading floor.
Congresswoman Haley Stevens, Dr. El-Sayed, we thank you so much for your time. We're not done at all. In fact, the debate is only halfway through. Our conversation continues. We have a lot of text messages. This bat phone's been blowing up. We're going to take some of your questions. The debate continues on our streaming platform, Fox Local. Here's what you do. Scan the QR code on the right of your screen. Go right to fox2detroit.com if that's easier, on your phone, iPad, or on your connected TV, Fox Local. The candidates will answer more of your questions, and we'll hear from more of our studio audience as well. We've already received more than 700 text messages. We're going to comb through them, get to a couple of them after the break. I'm Roop Raj. We'll see you in a few minutes.
special edition of The Pulse, the Democratic Senate debate. Live from our Fox 2 studios, here's Roop Raj.
Thanks for staying with us on this special edition of The Pulse, streaming exclusively on Fox Local and fox2detroit.com. You're about to hear more from the candidates, and they'll hear from you. Scan the QR code on your screen or text your question 248-200-5042. Our producing team in the control room, they're monitoring all of these texts. Yours could be asked next. We'll also hear from our studio audience as well. And so we begin with this text message with Dr. Abdul El-Sayed and also Congresswoman Haley Stevens. How will you bring back manufacturing jobs and secure longevity for the big three? Congresswoman, you had a chance to address this earlier. We're going to begin with Dr. El-Sayed on what he plans to do when it comes to manufacturing jobs and securing the big three.
Well, I'm grateful for the endorsement of the UAW. And they endorsed me because they understand that a pathway forward to bring back the manufacturing that we lost because of terrible policies like USMCA, voted on by my friend here, is to make sure that we are thoughtful about actually regulating the way that corporations and the top of corporations make decisions. Number one, I think we need to ban stock buybacks. This is this process by which corporations will literally buy their own stock to artificially raise their stock price, taking money away from the future of R&D and the workers themselves. Number two, I actually think that there's a pathway, unlike the stupid tariffs of Donald Trump, which is around-the-clock tariffs for everyone. I think that there's a place for targeted tariffs. If you think about free trade like cancer, I think we need some chemo. And the way that that would work is that they were transparent, specific, directed to particular product lines. And then number three, I think we need to massively invest in continuing to be the best place to make an internal combustion engine in the world, and also to invest in EVs and EV infrastructure. And I want to talk about what I mean by that. I don't believe in a mandate, but what I do believe is that you should be able to buy a $25,000, 300-mile range car brought to you by the big three. Why? Because that's the way that we're going to be able to create a product line that can compete all over the world with the kinds of cars that China is now manufacturing and eating our lunch on. But that means we have to invest in workers, and that really is the most important piece here. The UAW has built the American automotive industry. We need to be invested in them. We need to make sure that we continue to have the best manufacturing and engineering talent in the world. And that means ending the restriction that we've seen, and it means investing in our workers again. Again, we have an opportunity to continue to lead if we're willing to actually think past the ridiculousness of the Trump administration into what the future can be and into how we continue to invest in workers, engineers, and a product line be fit for the future.
Congresswoman, I know you have a lot of notes and a lot in your mind and heart about manufacturing, but does it disturb you at all that the UAW put their endorsement to Abdul when you've done all this stuff for manufacturing that you've talked about?
Look, I am so deeply proud to have a longstanding relationship with retirees and UAW members, and to have 17 labor endorsements in this race by a long shot. And I'm also very proud to have receipts and plans, and I'll show you where I'm leading the charge. Costs are killing us in our manufacturing sector. All right, the trade war with Canada has sold us out. There are 1,000 Cleveland Cliffs workers, mostly in downriver, that are out of work right now. You know, Mike Rogers wants to rubber stamp all of this. The stakes couldn't be higher. November is 50-50. He said on the leaked call he wants to run against Abdul. He knows that I passed bipartisan wins for Michigan with chips and science to lessen our dependence on China, that I want to do that with critical minerals, which will lower costs and create jobs and continue to propel us as a manufacturing hub. And look, Roop, I was deeply proud to play a role in the Obama administration when our big three was on the line, particularly General Motors and Chrysler, and hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs across our state. That was a long time ago, but it was policy that worked. We cannot take for granted that this incredible state of ours, Michigan, is just one of a handful left in the country whose central economy, all the jobs, drive through manufacturing. I'm going to be the champion for that in the United States Senate, and I'm going to run through anyone and anything that gets in my way to deliver for us.
You know, one of the things and one of the reasons we wanted this debate to happen right now, just hardly a week away from the big election, is because people don't always understand the differences between the two of you. Some of them are clear, some of them are not. So I'm going to ask you a question that is really mirrored in this text message from one of our Fox 2 viewers. And I think this is really a poignant question. Dr. El-Sayed, I'll begin with you. What is the number one thing Senate Democrats are failing to do right now that you would do differently?
Well, number one, I just think the filibuster itself is anti-democratic. And we had an opportunity to break the filibuster. Now, let me just talk about what the filibuster is. The filibuster is a process by which all of the Senate can hide behind one senator who wants to filibuster, which requires a 60-vote threshold to break. And that means that you need 60 votes to pass something when it really should just be the majority number of votes. I oppose the filibuster. I think the filibuster has been anti-democratic for a lot of reasons. And once you get past that, we have the opportunity to get money out of politics to take on Citizens United. We have the opportunity to put money back in pockets by doing things like passing the PRO Act to stand with unions like the UAW who've endorsed us. We have the opportunity to start changing and enforcing our antitrust policies so a few corporations can't pick your pocket at every turn. We have the opportunity to tax billionaires their wealth, and we have the opportunity to finally guarantee every single person in this country health care through Medicare for all. But we've got to get the democracy part of it right. And right now, the biggest risks to our democracy are the filibuster, it's anti-democratic at the Senate, and money in politics. The attack ads that you've seen, probably in the last commercial break itself, that change our political system. When you ask $60 million to come into a race for you and then say that somehow you're electable, I think you don't quite understand what electability means. If you need a $60 million crutch, you probably can't be elected on your own terms. So I would just say that you should probably, if you really want to beat Mike Rogers, find the candidate who is electable without having to ask for a $60 million crutch to do it.
Congresswoman?
Well, look, you talk about the senators who've come in here from the coast to campaign alongside Abdul. And I think one of the things they are really missing is what we need here in Michigan. You know, an understanding of what makes our state tick. You know, go and visit a small business. Go and talk to a Black-owned business. You know, I know it's great to host rallies and have these fun events, but everywhere I have gone in Michigan, I have taken the time to visit a minority-owned business. I want to see my bill that would take an investment capital structure into Black-owned businesses. So things like what we have on the Avenue of Fashion, which is a national best practice, that we can do that in Saginaw and Muskegon and Lansing. There's so much great economic development happening here, but our tax code and our tax dollars aren't working for us, which is why I have staked such a big part of my campaign on hope and equity so that every zip code gets equal investment. I have fought to bring these dollars into Pontiac, and I'm darn proud of it. You know, for the bridge and for youth recreation, we need to continue to do that across the state. And the people who aren't from here, who are so eager to campaign here, they should really come and spend some time with the residents and the people who I'm hearing from each and every single day. Look, there's a lot to be proud of for Michigan, but there is so much we could be doing to do more for folks.
I believe your question. I just want to make sure that the viewer had their question answered, because I think it was about what was going wrong in the Senate, and we got this conversation about why senators should come visit, which is actually exactly what they just did. But I just also want to just be clear about this, that at the end of the day, yes, you should go to small businesses. That's actually what we've done. We've also gone to 475 public events where we actually took questions from an audience rather than these baked and polished, made for a camera events that too often is the way that my friend has campaigned. And so, look, we do bring people in because we want to actually introduce them to Michiganders. And wouldn't it be better if one of our senators went to the Senate with colleagues ready to work with them on day one?
Well, I do want to ask you both about contrasting something that I think is really important right now. When we talk about ICE, this is something that obviously has seemed to kind of calm down a bit, but it's still fundamentally important to everyone who's watching right now. Congresswoman Stevens, where do you stand on ICE and the funding for ICE and where things should be going?
Well, I am leading the charge in the Congress right now to redirect $70 billion of your tax money, Michiganders' taxpayer money, that went to ICE at the expense of your health care, at the expense of food benefits, all things that I am hearing from Michiganders where they are experiencing pain points. We've got to redirect that $70 billion back into communities. I called for Kristi Noem to go. She was fired. But guess what? no reforms. Not a penny more for this rogue agency that is wreaking havoc. Look, I've talked to administrators at Harms Elementary in Detroit, parents who are afraid to drop their kids off for school because of these ICE raids. This isn't working for us. This is abuse of power. And I am standing up to Trump right now on these abuses of power, not shouting into a bullhorn, not getting in front of the first camera I see, but doing the hard work. That is what Michigan deserves. Look, my opponent here, Abdul, he is such a talented guy. He's written 3 books. He's had 300 podcasts. He's had all this attention. But the deal is we don't need a celebrity candidate. We don't need a celebrity senator. We need somebody who is committed to 6 years of hard, unglamorous work that's going to stand up to this junk that is wreaking havoc and causing chaos right before our very eyes. It's unacceptable.
All right, Congresswoman, thank you. Dr. El-Sayed, you heard Congresswoman Stevens there say, essentially, strip away some of the funding for ICE. Is that not good enough?
Well, she's also voted to raise ICE funding 4 times. That's the part that you didn't hear. 4 times voted to raise ICE funding. Voted to thank ICE, in fact. So this is the same kind of D.C. hypocrisy, I hate to say it, that we often see. Say one thing in front of a camera, do another thing. I said that we need to abolish ICE. ICE is not about immigration. ICE is not about the southern border. We can have a safe and secure southern border. We can also enforce immigration policy. But ICE is not about that. ICE is about normalizing paramilitary force on our streets. And I just want to push back on the idea that it's calmed down. I mean, I was just in Genesee County this weekend, and you had raids in Saginaw. People are scared to death, and we've got a congresswoman who tells you that she's against ICE, has voted to raise ICE funding, voted to thank ICE, called the people who work in ICE, very fine public servants and other things when she went and visited herself. So I'm just saying that I do the thing that I say I'm going to do. I don't think ICE needs to exist. For the better part of our country's history, we did not have an ICE, and I think we can do a much better job when it comes to immigration without one. And here's the last thing I just want to say about this. When it comes to the question of immigration, we need Democrats who are going to stand up and actually talk about the great good that immigration has done for our country in the first place. The idea that somehow we can't say abolish ICE because we're so afraid of what they're going to say when we've seen ICE terrorize people in our streets, to me, is exactly the kind of cowardice that we don't need from Democrats. So yeah, I'm going to take the bullhorn, and I'm going to say that I think we need to abolish ICE because I am not afraid of what they're going to say about me.
Doctor, I do want to follow up, though, with both of you. Isn't saying abolish ICE like saying defund the police? Is that just busting the whole thing open? Or do you believe that in order to have enforcement, you need to have an agency that knows how to do it?
Yeah, well, I just also ran government agencies. And I know that when a culture of impunity sets into a government agency, it becomes almost impossible to take out. And so I think the agency as it exists does not need to exist. That's not to say that we are not going to keep our streets secure. That's not to say that we're not going to enforce immigration policy. That's not to say that we shouldn't have a safe, secure southern border.
How do you do it?
The same way we did it for most of our history, Roop. For most of our history, we didn't have ICE. We had INS, and they were targeted. They obeyed the laws of this land. They didn't terrorize people in places like preschools and parking lots. They didn't run up in schools and churches. They understood that their job, yes, was to enforce immigration policy, but they did it under the protection of the Constitution itself. And that's what we're losing here. You've got ICE agents who do not understand that the central law of this country is the Constitution itself. ICE has become a tyrannical agency, and I think there is no way to get past that except for to undo the agency and then build from scratch.
Congresswoman, you have been on video saying on social media before about the fine people of ICE. Do you feel differently about that? Do you believe that both can be true, that there needs to be reform, but there are good people working with ICE?
Roop, let me just be very clear. Complaints and slogans aren't solutions, all right? I went up to an ICE detention facility to call out and see why people were losing their lives, why they were being held for long periods of time without due process. This has been an outrage. And look, a lot of you remember Abdul from when he first ran for governor in 2018. It didn't work out. So he started the podcast, he wrote the books, and now he's running for Senate. And he's already bought the website for president. You know, it's just another rung on the ladder. That's not what this job is for me. That's not why I'm putting up my hand in this moment. It's not about celebrity. This is about making sure that Mike Rogers doesn't get anywhere close to this seat. I'm the only one on this stage who has beat MAGA 4 times and delivered repeatedly for this state and for our values, for our rights and our freedoms. And I promise you, Michigan, I will make us shine.
Dr. El-Sayed, there are people watching this right now, and every time they hear this podcast business, they're scratching their heads. They're putting food on the table, gas in the tank. They're curious to know what that's about. Have you made a ton of money because of podcasts?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I told all the viewers at the outset that while my opponent was going to make this about me and her, I want to make this about you. Somehow she just really, you can listen to the podcast. It's there. Congresswoman, if you enjoy podcasts about public health, I welcome you to take a listen. You seem very concerned about that. I'm more concerned about the fact that people can't pay for their gas, they can't pay for their groceries. We're fighting a war that's cost us billions of dollars that has been pushed by the government of a foreign country, the same foreign country that the folks paying for your ads want us to send billions of dollars to. And that's the thing that I think Michiganders really want to understand. They're not that worried about the fact that I hosted a podcast. They're worried about the fact that right now, for a lot of folks, their kids go to schools that are unbecoming of their future. They are worried about the fact that they can't gas up their car because it costs, what, $4.50 a gallon? They're worried about the fact that the same corporations who funded your campaign are raising rates on the things that they can't go without, like their power. So I'd really like us to focus on the things that actually matter, which have nothing to do with a podcast, have everything to do with the future of Michiganders that we would like to serve.
Yeah, but it also is about transparency. And you have not released your full tax returns, $300,000 in other income, while you sat in the podcast chair and you hawked junk healthcare cures that RFK Jr. would thumbs up. You talk about getting money out of politics and putting money in people's pockets, but still no one knows who's putting the money in your pocket. You know, I have been transparent and I am offering, real plans to address the cost of living crisis,
we want to be able to
tackle Donald Trump's
and you're talking about what you did, but you also made some accusations here. Dr. El-Sayed, that is a question that some people may have that Congresswoman's talking about. Talk about the money and the financial disclosures. You were going to release some today.
Released all of our financial disclosures. Again, this is a distraction from the issues in your life.
But not
I'd love to talk about transparency. I really would. Because I want you to ask yourself, there is this group called the Center for Democratic Priorities. They didn't exist until they popped up and started running ads for my opponent. And then there's this other group called Center Forward that paid for a flight for the Congresswoman and her mother to go to Portugal. And they just released their donors, and then it's a whole bunch of shell 501c4 organizations. They're the folks who are literally putting money in our pockets right now to try and mis and disinform us about this race. And here's the thing about it. None of it actually makes your life better. Think about the $60 million that got spent in this race. What could $60 million do for a community in Detroit? What could $60 million mean for erasing medical debt? I'll tell you, $6 billion it could erase. But they want to spend it to get the Congresswoman elected. Why? Because at the end of the day, they know that they're going to have a safe seat doing their bidding instead of yours. Every single dollar that DTE is spending is a down payment on knowing that they can raise your rates. Every single dollar that Blue Cross Blue Shield spends in this race is a down payment on raising your premium.
All right.
Every single dollar.
Thank you, Dr. El-Sayed. I want to ask some more questions from our audience at home right now. You're texting us. I got them right here. The next question is, how will you ensure low-income communities receive equitable and adequate education? You've heard so many people say Michigan ranks 44th when it comes to literacy for fourth graders. Let's start with Congresswoman Haley Stevens. What are you doing now? What do you plan to do should you become senator?
Well, we are certainly being robbed by Washington, D.C. and Donald Trump, who treats the Oval Office like a stock trade floor. This is why I want to end the corruption of seeing people who want to be celebrities or get famous or rich in office. I want to ban stock trading. Folks, I'm the only non-millionaire in this race. But let me tell you something about what I have worked on and what I am fighting for. Full funding for special education. You know, our public schools here in Michigan are getting the short end of the stick. And if we fully fund special education, we can meet the needs that a family in Royal Oak has talked to me about, where they feel torn about making sure that their child with special complex medical needs actually get the education they deserve. This is also why we have to expand Medicaid, not just reinstate the cuts that Donald Trump cut. We have got to expand these programs. And I consider myself a warrior for public education. And this is also why I have written legislation and why I'm leading the charge to redirect grants to go into the profession of education, just like my father was. He was a first grade teacher in the city of Detroit doing reading recovery, in addition to running his small business. And so I want to see more people go into that profession, go into our public schools, and that is going to certainly solve a lot of problems for us.
Dr. El-Sayed, you heard the Congresswoman say redirect grant money. Is that part of the solution here? What do you think?
You know, you asked a really important question about education. I'd like to answer that question. I'm proud of the fact that the American Federation of Teachers has endorsed me in this race. And they've done it because I'm a proud product of public schools. I know what it's like to walk into a public school in Detroit in January, and kids are bundled up because the boiler's broken, trying to learn how to read. You talk about a literacy crisis. How do you learn how to read when you have to wear a coat in the middle of the day? We put glasses on kids' faces specifically because we knew that it doesn't matter what's happening on the blackboard if you can't see the blackboard. But we need to radically rethink how we do public education in this country. We are not invested nearly enough. I want to tie the support for public education through the Department of Education, which, by the way, needs not just to be brought back, but fully invested in. I want to tie that funding to the Department of Defense. So when they try to raise the Department of Defense budget, we're going to make sure we're invested in public schools too. I also think that the way that we have funded local education, specifically school buildings, has too often ported the historical racism of the past. Right now, we fund school buildings based on property tax. Property tax is a function of property value. Property value is a function of who's been able to live where as a function of redlining from the past. And when we say that that same process should be patterning the social mobility of the future through public schools, that's a real problem. But I just want to say this. I actually agree with the Congresswoman on one really critical thing. We are being robbed. The money that we should have to invest in our schools is being sent to foreign governments to destroy other people's schools instead of investing in our own. And that is exactly what AIPAC wants you to do and why they're spending so much money to get the Congresswoman elected.
Dr. El-Sayed, Congresswoman, it's one point in which at least partially you agree on. As one of you will be taking on Mike Rogers, people want to know what are the defining differences. This next question comes to us from a young person herself who actually is a student in Detroit, a college student. And we thank you so much, Kimora, for being with us here today. What's your question to the candidates?
Thank you. Good evening, candidates. My name is Kimora Riddick, and I'm a Wayne State University junior studying broadcast journalism. And my question is about the wildfires. So the wildfires from Canada deeply affected Michigan's air quality, especially in Detroit. What environmental measures are you planning to decrease the dangers of air pollution?
Let's start with Congresswoman Haley Stevens.
Yeah, well, it is so great to have a student from Wayne here. I've just treasured working with that university in their science program and STEM education. And that is very much at the heart of why we need good climate policy, not the junk science that we are getting from the Trump administration. And let me tell you what I think that looks like. One, we've got to cut the carbon emissions. We've got to lessen our dependence on big oil and gas. Investments like I secured in our clean energy future so that from Marquette to Detroit, we were evolving and moving forward. You know, that has been stripped away by Donald Trump, and that's not right. But it's also not enough to just say, hey, we're going to go in there and just fight Trump. We've got to put forward our own creative ideas, which is why for 4 terms I've sat there on the science committee, securing resources, looking at alternatives for plastic and our supply chain. This is an opportunity for Michigan manufacturing, Michigan innovation to shine. I want to make sure that we are leading the way. And then when Kamara is a broadcast personality, she's talking about the things that we have secured in the United States Senate for Michigan, for our jobs and for our clean energy future.
Dr. El-Sayed, clean air.
Kamara, just be careful. If you become a broadcast personality, somebody might come after you. I just want to speak specifically to your question. I can tell you about what we've already done. We put air quality monitors all over Wayne County so folks can get real-time information about the air that they're breathing. Took on some of the biggest corporate polluters in our state when I was in the city of Detroit. Took on Marathon Petroleum, the biggest polluter and the most polluted zip code in the state, forced them to invest their own money to reduce emissions when they had wanted to increase them. The truth of the matter is that these wildfires are happening more often because it's drier and hotter than it has been in the past. It's drier and hotter because we continue to rely on fossil fuels for our energy. We need to get to 100% renewable energy. And the only way we're going to do that is by taking the Chevrons and the Exxons of the world out of our politics. Now, guess whose campaign they supported? Well, if you guessed my Congresswoman colleague, you probably guessed right, because yes, they have both given to that campaign. So when you hear ideas of things that ought to be done, but they never actually get done, you should ask yourself why it doesn't get done. Well, because the people who sell oil in this country fund the politicians who make sure that they can keep selling oil.
Dr. El-Sayed, Congresswoman, thank you so much. We have another text question, one of the many, many text questions. This one, I think, is important because, again, my main goal and our main goal at Fox 2, let's differentiate between the two of you. What are the big differences here? So what would you do on your first day in office? We'll begin with you, Dr. El-Sayed. What would you do on your first day of office should you become senator?
Anybody who knows me knows that getting people health care is the passion of my life. I went to medical school only to realize that too often our health care system is part of the problem. We need and deserve guaranteed health care through Medicare for all. I have been thinking about this question. In fact, I've testified to the U.S. Senate twice. This wouldn't be my first time walking into the chamber. On Medicare for all, guaranteeing health care, on eliminating the medical debt in this country, $225 billion. Now, on Medicare for all, there is work that we're going to have to do. We're going to have to get a president elected who can do it in 2029. Now, in the process, though, I actually think that we could eliminate all the medical debt in this country, $225 billion. Just so you understand what that is the amount of the GDP of more than half of U.S. states in this country. So on day one, I want to offer medical debt relief to everybody. I think we could get bipartisan support to do it, and I'd love to get that done. And let's start working through Medicare for all, and then let's make sure that we can get money out of politics so the big pharmas and the big insurances of the world aren't in the way when it comes down to finally getting this done for all Americans.
Congresswoman, in a minute and a half, tell us what you do on your first day in office.
Yeah, day one, we have to stand up to the abuses of power. Take it from somebody who has been recognized as our most effective lawmaker. When I tell you I'm going to go to the United States Senate and ban stock trading for elected officials, their spouses, their children, for our president and our vice president, and for candidates for those offices, I am going to get it done. I am sick and tired of seeing Donald Trump sell us out to the highest bidder, go cut deals with every other country except for cutting deals for us here in Michigan. We have been paying the price, and it is not acceptable. And speaking of prices, day one actions to lower costs and to invest in small businesses, minority-owned businesses right here in Michigan. Those are your tax dollars, and I believe in the effective stewardship of them so that they go back to our communities here, and I've got the receipts for that. I've got the proof points for that. And then lastly, we got to make sure that the jobs of the future are coming from the place that we all love to call home, which is why my manufacturing agenda on day one will also be in the hopper. I got all the bills ready to go, Roop.
We have 30 seconds left for each of you to answer the following question. What makes you think you're the formidable candidate who can take on Mike Rogers? 30 seconds, Dr. El-Sayed.
Well, poll after poll after poll has shown, despite what my colleague says, that I am the most competitive candidate to take on Mike Rogers. But it's also this, that you've got to have something you're fighting for. Ask yourself, if DTE funds both Mike Rogers and Haley Stevens, who wins? DTE wins. And Blue Cross and Big Pharma and Big Tech and APAC, all funded by the same people. We need a choice. I'm the only candidate in this race who does not take corporate money. And so I offer a real contrast to a guy who has never seen a corporate dollar he did not want.
Congresswoman Haley Stevens, 30 seconds.
Well, look, Governor Whitmer, Attorney General Nessel, the chair of the Michigan Legislative Black Caucus, Amos O'Neill, they all agree that I will be Michigan's workhorse, that I will stand up for us on day one, that I will beat Mike Rogers just like I have beat Republicans 4 times over.
Thank you so much. Congresswoman Haley Stevens, Dr. El-Sayed, the vote is now in the people's hands, a week away. A critical conversation happening on this stage that, yes, is local, but is national as the world is watching to hear what both of you have to say. We thank you for your time here today. We want to thank you for joining us in this special edition of The Pulse. If you missed any of the debate or the Republican or Democratic gubernatorial debates, you can watch all of them on fox2detroit.com or on our YouTube page. Stay tuned here on Fox Local. We're taking you inside the spin room where both of these candidates are answering questions from the media who've come up from across the country. Ronya Shimona picks up our coverage next with reaction from tonight's debate live. I'm Rup Raj. As always, it was good to be with you.
Just $50 a month for 5 years. Xfinity, imagine that. And see Minions and Monsters only in theaters. For one, care.
Watched, we just saw them finishing off the shaking of hands with our very own Rup Raj and thanking him for hosting and moderating this Senate debate on our coverage here on Fox 2 and Fox Local. And once they are ready to walk over to the spin room, we're going to listen to them. Listen to what they thought about the questions, about the answers, and the reactions from the opposing candidate, as well as from the questions of the media. There are other people joining us in that spin room that are not part of Fox 2 that want to learn more from the candidates. So we're going to hear more questions tonight about this, obviously all coming to us ahead of the primary next week on Tuesday. We also have a debate we want you to join in on. As you see on our screen right now, this is our poll question for tonight. Did tonight's debate change the way you're going to vote in the Tuesday primary next week? Yes or no? Chime in right now. The QR code is on your screen. We want to hear your thoughts on this. So we're going to continue talking about this because not only do we have the spin room coming up where we're going to hear from the candidates individually, but we're also going to continue with our reaction room live. That's going to be our post-debate, post-spin room coverage, and that's because we want to hear from you, all the people that are watching tonight. What are your thoughts? Did tonight's debate sway your decision? Are you angry with some of the responses? Is there something else you wanted to hear and clear up from tonight's debate? And some of you might be a little bit more confused. In fact, I'm reading some of our comments on social media, on YouTube, and so much more. So I want to hear from you guys. I would love to actually get you guys in our live Zoom. That's going to happen later in our reaction room. Again, a live look right now at our spin room where we're going to hear from each candidate individually. Now, I do want to recap a few moments that really set the tone of this debate, beginning with the AIPAC money. This has been a question that a lot of us have been really looking for answers for. Let's listen in to what was said during that part of the debate.
Many people ask the question about AIPAC, and it seems as though on many instances you haven't directly answered the question. Do you see why some people are bothered by the fact that so much money, $40+ million, has come from AIPAC for these PACs to talk about you and to promote you and to put you up as their candidate?
Yeah, and I appreciate the question, Rup, because this moment in this country and here in Michigan, people have every right to be frustrated about our campaign finance system. My opponent here on this stage, Abdul, he's got a super PAC that his father-in-law funds that has millions of dollars going into it. And look, in terms of foreign policy, You know, Abdul and I do differ. I believe in a two-state solution. He has attacked me by name for purporting that the people of Palestine and the people of Israel deserve to live side by side peacefully. The goal is always long-term peace. And also, the Prime Minister of Israel has attacked me by name. They both represent the extremes. Look, Michiganders want peace. They deserve to see peace, and that is where I have always cast my vote, and that is the work that I want to do for Michigan in the U.S. Senate.
Specifically about AIPAC money, more than $46 million has been spent on AIPAC spending to back your campaign. A lot of people wonder if that is something where you're going to do their bidding should you win this seat. Is that something people should be concerned about? And if not, why not?
Absolutely not, Roop. Look, I have been very clear, consistent, and transparent, and I have continued to be. I want to see long-term peace. I want to see a two-state solution. I am deeply proud to represent one of the largest Jewish populations in a congressional district in the country. This is a community that I have grieved alongside, that I've mourned alongside, and have fought to bring the hostages home. And I'm still working to get us to long-term peace.
But no concern about the $46 million+ spent.
And we're going to continue listening into some of that. But for now, we are keeping a close eye on our spin room, where we're expected to hear from Congresswoman Haley Stevens, who has just gotten to the podium. Let's listen in.
Money that your campaign has accepted. How can you guarantee to the voters out there that your votes will not be bought and paid for?
Well, look, I think my receipts and what I am leading the fight on speaks for itself right now. You know, I am telling DTE that you are screwing over your ratepayers and you are going to lose your federal funds. I am standing up to Donald Trump and these reckless abuses of power. In fact, I wrote Stop Trump's Abuse of Power into law. You know, I'm trying to write it into law. I've introduced it as a bill. But I'm going to tell you something else. You know, I keep showing how I'm transparent, that my full tax returns are out. And my opponent just hasn't done the same. You know, he got a little nervous, I think, with the podcast stuff. He was selling these corporate junk healthcare things. Won't answer about it, won't give us the full details about who's funding him. And this is such a serious election. This is a toss-up seat for November. And now I've got a proven track record of beating Republicans, and I'm also so committed to our process. I signed up for this race knowing it would be a big one. And, that's what public service is all about for me. I had a fully paralyzed veteran at the start of last year when he saw Elon Musk with a chainsaw asking if he was still going to get his benefit check. Now's not the time to be comfortable. I'm leaning in and I'm fighting, and I am darn proud of making sure that Michiganders are going to be heard in the halls of power when I get to the United States Senate.
Will we see campaign finance reform if you are elected?
Absolutely, because I have already reached across the aisle. I have voted consistently, and I'm outraged as the only non-millionaire in this race that Mike Rogers isn't going to do anything to deal with campaign finance reform. Again, A grading from the leading campaign finance reform organization, End Citizens United, endorsed by Defend the Vote. I'm working with voting rights groups across Michigan on this front. Our voters of color in particular being tormented by Donald Trump's threats. It wasn't just enough to go to Huntington Place and bang down the doors and create all that chaos. Now they're threatening to send the DOJ out here. This is why one of our leading advocates, Attorney General Dana Nessel, this is why she endorsed my candidacy, right? This is someone who is a proven fighter for Michigan in this moment, and she sees that in me for the United States Senate.
Congresswoman, how would this race look different if the campaign finance reform you espouse was actually in place? Would there be less outside spending if the campaign finance reforms you've supported were law right now?
Yeah, and certainly that super PAC that Abdul's father-in-law is funding, that is worth millions of dollars, that also has a federal election complaint, probably wouldn't exist either. Look, when I first ran for Congress, the only outside spending came in the general election, and it was the party committees. I am a public servant who puts up my hand to run. I think these laws are broken. I think they are outrageous. I think everybody should say and get on board, particularly these Republicans, but we know they won't do it. I mean, how do you think Trump got into office? Courtesy of Elon Musk and a dark money pack. Look, that's not going to work for us. We got to overhaul the whole darn thing. We got to be, maybe changing how the bills are introduced in the House and the Senate. I am just as frustrated as every Michigander. And I also really believe that we've got to stop the self-enrichment. These two go hand in hand. Why is Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, the vice president, why are they trading stocks while they're sitting in these offices? It's not right.
Congresswoman, you said today you didn't take money from utilities, but you got checks from consumers in DTE a month before you entered the Senate race.
Yeah, he asked specifically about the Senate race.
It was transferred to your Senate committee, I believe.
Yeah, he just asked about my current campaign. Yeah, Sam, did you have something?
Will you take donations from consumers in DTE if you
look? I'm
in the Senate?
Look. I'm running to beat Mike Rogers, and you heard tonight my opponent, make all these wild accusations talking about how employee monies that come from corporations are the root of the problem, except I'm leading the charge to take on DTE right now. I am leading the charge to say that you are screwing over your ratepayers, and I am going to strip your federal funds and force you to cut executive pay. I think that is damn good for the people of Michigan and what they need right now.
But will you
Thank you.
You're not answering.
Yeah. Look, I'm trying to get to the United States Senate. Like, you can keep pushing me. I have no idea, if we're going to be able to do these major reforms. But what I want to see us get these reforms done. I want to bend, the way in which these laws that hold us back, our democracy is crumbling. I'm not the problem here. My opponent on the stage, he sat there and attacked me. I'd never heard him say the word Trump, albeit once the entire time. I am leading the charge to take on his abuses of power. I am going to vote for comprehensive campaign finance reform. I'm not going to speculate about what employees groups are going to come together. But you know what? I will say this. Some of these groups, with the auto companies and this and that, my work in the Congress has always been directed towards the people of Michigan. I have 17 labor endorsements in this race, the most by a long shot, most of the building trades and the labor unions. But thank you so much for pushing on the question. I appreciate that, Beth. Yeah, nice to see you.
I want to ask about the conversation about Abdul's personal financial disclosure. I understand.
Yeah.
You might have just released it like 2 hours ago.
And we still don't have the full tax return.
What should we glean from what he did release today? I guess what was the most
I think it was released like when we were pulling in, so I don't know. But it's just the bigger, hundreds of thousands of Michiganders voted. We're talking about, the campaign finance system. Why is this leading candidate on the stage here not releasing his full tax return and being transparent with us? We're going to go into a general election, and these Republicans have got all the dough in the world to try and flip this seat. You got Rogers already saying that he wants to run against Abdul because he thinks it makes it easier. I don't plan on making anything easier for him.
Representative, I was at the Trump rally today and just
was it a rally? Yeah, site visit.
Fine line between rally
at
and
the Milford
site
Proving Ground, where I have been, I have been out to that Milford. It's an amazing thing. They used to spy on it because that's where they're testing all the cars.
I wonder.
And we've done a UAW strike there, in 2019. But anyway, you were asking about Trump.
I wonder, just talking to some of the Trump supporters there that seem to be licking their chops no matter who wins the primary, that there's going to be a schism in the party that is not going to be able to be healed by November. Do you have that concern?
I'm not playing into Republican fear-mongering attacks. I think what you have in the Michigan Democratic Party right now is the best of democracy on display here in Michigan. Abdul has put forward his ideas. I have put forward mine. He has run statewide before. Remember, he ran in 2018 for governor. Then he continued to go on with his, book writing, and that's when I think he started that podcast show. We still don't know exactly who was paying him for that or where that money came from, especially last year when he was running for Senate, because I was just working and standing up to Trump last year when I was running for this position. And so, look, no one's talking about Mike because he's doing nothing. He lost to Alyssa Slotkin. He's told us very clearly what he wants to do, which is rubber stamp Trump. He's being dishonest with the people of Michigan, and he knows that on November 3rd, I will beat him and become Michigan's next U.S. Senator, delivering for us on day one to lower costs, to stand up for our manufacturing sector, rather, and to stop Trump's abuse of power.
Congresswoman, picking up on that, what is your plan to win over the more stubborn Abdul supporters that he has brought into the fold that maybe weren't involved in past elections?
Well, look, I'm going to, work my heart out to earn every vote. I'm really proud to have a unique rapport with independent voters, as I always have, and I'm really proud of the unique coalition that I've built. Mayors from Lansing and Farmington Hills and Grand Rapids who, have endorsed my candidacy, and I'm so proud to be on the team. I'm on the team that believes in universal health care, on using the tax code so that we can lower costs and so that people can build wealth through small business creation, and so that industrial policy, like what I championed and got done for the CHIPS and Science Act, can be achieved in the form of other bills like what I want to do with critical minerals.
And you had a line on this during the debate, but if you could expand, why don't you support abolishing ICE? Is it because you don't think it'll ever pass Congress? Is it because
I just don't think slogans address complex solutions. You heard what I said in the debate. I said that the $70 billion slush fund that went to ICE needs to be redirected and stripped away from them and go into our communities, that we need to have overhauls. Also, we need to have accountability, something else I'm leading the charge on. ICE agents that committed crimes from top to bottom need to be prosecuted. Those are real solutions here. I am already leading on this front, and I'm ready to continue doing it, just like Gary Peters, our great senator right now. Pay attention to the work that he's doing on this front. You had something, friend?
Yes. Do you regret the amount of money that AIPAC has spent for you in this campaign, given how often they came up in the debate and on the campaign trail?
Look, I'm proud of my record. I'm proud to be, fighting for the people of Michigan. Anyone, and this goes to Beth's question. Look, people who donate to me, in the ways that our rules allow, they are doing so because I fight for the people of Michigan. My record on that front is crystal clear. I'm not just offering complaints and slogans. I'm working alongside people like Governor Whitmer, who's endorsed my race, Amos O'Neill, Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, and, oh my gosh, the former Speaker of the Michigan State House, history maker Joe Tate. And there's some audience members here who might chime in, and I want to earn their votes too. That's what this is all about. And sometimes we look for, perfection in our candidates. And I am an honest broker fighting for people. I am ticked off that these prices are going up over and over again. It's not right. It's not fair. Donald Trump doesn't care. Mike Rogers said very clearly, he said, oh yeah, people can deal with gas being $5 a gallon, So no, I have no regrets fighting for the people of Michigan and standing by my values as I do it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're going to get 3 audience
We can't
members.
leave them waiting. I know, they're good people.
Abdul El-Sayed's coming next. We got 3 audience members. So, Congresswoman, we'll have you walk out this way.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. Thank you, Congressman.
Yeah, thank you.
And here we got,
Nice to meet you in person.
Oh my gosh, good to see you. Yeah, you told me you were here.
Our reaction room continues at this hour. We just heard from Congresswoman Haley Stevens and this post-debate reaction with questions coming from a lot of the press that is in our spin room. Her thoughts on the debate. A lot of what she's saying is I've got the receipts for that. We've heard that multiple times. She's also addressed that her opponent was attacking her throughout the debate rather than going after Donald Trump, President Donald Trump. We're going to continue listening in on the spin room. Right now, we are awaiting to hear from Dr. Abdul El-Sayed as well, who is going to enter the spin room in just a few minutes to hear his take, his reaction on how this debate went. Certainly a lot more questions than answers right now, because it seems like a lot of questions were not answered around the DTE, and consumers' reaction was kind of mixed. We didn't understand if there were any possible solutions on the forefront there. There was also a mention of Dr. El-Sayed's tax returns not being given out. He says they were. She says we didn't receive the full tax return. So a lot of questions surrounding who's saying what is really out there, talking about the abuses of power as well with Washington, D.C. Of course, a lot more coming up here on Fox Local. We're going to continue this reaction room coverage right now, where we're going to hear just a few minutes from Dr. El-Sayed, his reaction to this debate. Some of the other things that were mentioned by him was getting health care done, getting health care through Medicare for all, and eliminating medical debt in this country. The one thing, though, how is this all going to happen? We want to know more about this, and hopefully he can chime in on what is the response to that. How do you get medical debt relief, and who's really going to be paying for that? So we certainly hope that's something he talks about in the reaction room. We're just keeping a close eye on where things stand right now. You're taking a live look right now of possibly other press, other media maybe joining in on the spin room.
I will say this, though. I love the energy of our young people. That's why it was important tonight.
Maybe just reaction from other viewers that we have in the audience as well. But certainly a moment that is very important right now for Michigan, a week ahead of these primaries. I mean, we, as you saw in our poll question that we've had pop up a few times, did this debate sway the way you're going to vote next week? A big majority said no. 77% say no. They are still going to vote for the person that they had already intended to vote for prior to the debate. Now, you still have some 23%, I believe, that say there is a possibility their vote might change. That's a big chunk of people that are still undecided on who they are voting for next week. We've also taken questions from viewers via text or in studio. One of the questions was about wildfires and the question about pollution in Metro Detroit. The wildfires affecting our air quality. It looks like Dr. El-Sayed is up right now. Let's listen in.
There's still some data that many people say is missing, including some of the granular.
Happy to. I'll tell you what, you reach out to our office, we'll be happy to give it to you. I think this is all a distraction from the question of who are all the 501c4s that have funded Center Forward? Who are all the funders behind the Center for Democratic Priorities? Now, to say that somehow my tax return is more important to the voters in the state than the $60 million that have been spent in this race on ads, most of them attacking me at this point, I think is missing the boat. So happy to release everything. We released all of our personal financials. I'm not hiding anything. The question is, what's the Congresswoman hiding about the people who are actively funding her campaign? We're getting outspent in this race 12-1. I don't think people really quite appreciate what that means. 12-1. All money funded through super PACs, which is exactly what the ending of Citizens United is supposed to do. Now, when you can say you really want to get money out of politics or you want to end Citizens United, but then you are the principal benefactor of Citizens United, that to me seems just to be a little bit more of the hypocrisy that we've seen.
We're taking large money from family members, large amounts of money from.
I'll tell you this: my father-in-law does not want to send your tax dollars to the Israeli military to do genocide. I'll tell you that much. And also, again, 12-1. 12-1, like the difference matters here, and most of any outside funding has come from, right, Working Families Party, UAW, American Federation of Teachers, National Nurses United. I've never taken a dollar from a corporation. she's hiding all the corporate dollars she's taken, or lying about it, frankly, that you all saw. DTE, $47,500 in this race, and frankly said, no, I haven't taken it. That, I mean, if you can lie about that straight up in front of a studio audience and like national television viewers, what else are you lying about? And so I'd love to have a conversation about transparency, love to have a conversation about funding campaigns, love to have a conversation about why she's taking money from all of the worst corporate actors. So Chevron, Exxon, DTE, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Big Pharma, Big Tech, APAC. Who else? And then why did you and your mom have to go to Portugal? Like, that's the important question. We want to talk about family members, right? Like, why do you take your mom to Portugal? Like, did she have to get spun by the same corporations trying to spin you on policy so that, like, on the way home, your mom could spin you? I don't understand. Like, is this how it's supposed to be done? Is this how, like, when you go to DC, is that how they teach you you're supposed to operate? Because I'm not trying to operate that way. And I think it's important for voters out there to understand just how corrupting the corporate money has become. When they're flying you out to Portugal to talk to you about big pharma policy or big tech policy, when you come back, you're not doing the goods for Michiganders, you're doing the goods for those companies.
How do you plan on voting on the state capitol convention question in November?
The state capitol convention in November.
The con-con.
I have to be honest with you, like, that's an interesting, I think you're the first journalist to ask me. I'm gonna say no at this point. I'm vote against it. But you know, I do think that we're due up for some updates, particularly at the federal level, right? I mean, so many of the problems in our governance at the federal level right now are, we need to be rethinking them, whether it's the Electoral College, whether it's Senate rules like the filibuster, or whether it's the way the Supreme Court has become so riggable, you know, life terms at the Supreme Court. I think a lot of these questions need to be rethought.
Do you want to respond to the accusation that you were promoting junk healthcare cures on your podcast? I'm reading about it now.
Yeah, well, no, I didn't, and you know, I don't know specifically what's being alleged here, but we were very, very specific, not in any of our reads to make health cures. It's interesting to me how much of this debate the word podcast came up, which is wild to me because I don't think podcasts have anything to do with the ability to afford your gas or your groceries. I don't think podcasts have anything to do with whether or not your kid goes to a good school. I don't think podcasts have anything to do with the onslaught of corporate money that we keep getting fed into our eyeballs on television every single time you turn on a TV. And so, you know, I don't know why the Congresswoman is so angry at podcast hosts, but they're not the reason you can't afford your groceries or ever believe you could own a home.
Haley Stevens has claimed many times and several times on the debate stage tonight that she's the only non-millionaire in the race. Is that true?
Well, I mean, I file with my wife. So if you count all of our joint assets, maybe. The Congresswoman I know files alone. And so you're not comparing apples to apples at that point. I know it's a convenient slogan and AIPAC wants to pay to put it on TV, but we're not comparing apples to apples. The question also has less to do with my personal finances and a lot more to do with the personal finances of the CEOs whose corporations she takes money from. I'd like to know how many billionaires made their billions off of votes that she's taken. Right? I'd like to, when we talk about millions of dollars, why $60 million in this race? I'm happy to talk about finances, but the finances that matter for most folks in this state are the finances that they're worried about, that are being nickeled and dimed because of the deals that too many corrupted politicians make as a function of the corporate money that they take. DTE, I'd like to talk about how much does the DTE CEO make? You guys know? Probably 10 million, something like that. So when you take money from DTE, and the question is, are you going to regulate on DTE? What's the answer there? Yeah, you can write a bill and pretend like you're doing something about the problem, but what do you actually want to do when you take $47,500 and then are willing to lie about it in front of the world in the most watched debate in the country? Just frank lie. Frank, like in your face lie. No.
You have accepted money from the American Priorities PAC, which is a super PAC. You continue to say that you...
No corporate money.
So that's the difference? If it's
I don't take corporate money. I've always been clear I don't take corporate money. And if you're angry because AFT and the National Nurses United are supporting our campaign, that's like what unions do to push back on the corporations. Yeah, well, I mean, you know, we take individual contributions, certainly, but I'm not coordinating with any PAC. You know that's illegal when you ask. But also, let's just talk a little bit about scale here. How much are we being outspent, do you know? 12 to 1. No, answer the question. It's 12 to 1. 12 to 1. 12 to 1. So when you're talking about 12 to 1, like, let's actually talk about the amount of money that we've seen. And Michiganders are seeing it. Ad after ad after ad after ad. So if you want to say that the National Nurses United is somehow the same thing as AIPAC, I don't take that seriously.
The Congresswoman, when she was up here earlier, said she answered no to the question on DTE and consumers today because the contribution that she received in the FEC filings was the month before she filed for Senate. but it was later transferred to our Senate committee, but she said the
So-
question was specifically about the Senate.
So de facto, when somebody gives you money and then you take that money and put it into your Senate campaign, then the answer is you have taken money into your Senate campaign.
Do you think she should have answered yes?
I think the actual answer is yes. Like, the truth of the matter is, so she has a congressional campaign. Somebody takes a bunch of money and puts it in her congressional campaign, and then she takes the congressional campaign money and puts it into her Senate campaign, then by definition, she's taken it. And it's also really interesting. Did she on purpose do it the month before so that she could answer that answer no? At the end of the day, throughout her career, she's taken oodles and oodles of DTE money. Oodles and oodles. So, like, part of me says, well, yeah, if you want a senator who's going to stand up to DTE, that's probably not it, right? That's what people are asking. The technicality of the money is a secondary thing to, are you bought off by the corporation? And the answer is yes. So when you take their money at all, at some point, you probably have a cozy relationship with their PAC. You have a cozy relationship with their lobbyist. And when that lobbyist says, here's the bill we really want, that's probably the bill they get. And guess what happens to the rest of us? We end up paying, what, $3.99 to pay our DTE bill with a credit card? We've had our DTE rates go up faster than in 46 other states over 20 years. That's what that buys you. There's not, I mean, we pretend somehow that, like, oh, it's just money and people are fully independent. Well, why do they spend it then? I mean, money is cynical, but it's not dumb. So they spend their money to buy off politicians so that those politicians turn around and do their bidding. And it's the reason we end up paying more for less. It's the reason we get paid less for more. And it's the reason that our politics feel so corrupted.
Because if Haley Stevens wins the primary, will you support her in the general?
I've been super clear about the fact that we got to beat Mike Rogers. So yes, you guys keep asking me the same question.
What did you make of the comments from the Congresswoman about the tone of your campaign? Do you think that's a valid thing voters should consider?
You know, the tone that people are hearing, most of all, is the tone that's being brought to them by UDP, AIPAC, running attack ads on my character because I wrote an op-ed 15 years ago. Or I ran against the governor and said that she was taking money from Blue Cross Blue Shield. So, like, let's talk about the tone of the campaign. I've told my supporters multiple times not to make fun of her. I don't know what else you would want from a candidate. I've literally said, do not make fun of her. It's unkind. I've said it multiple times, but I've heard nothing. Even when the question of civility came up, you heard it today. The question of civility came up and she used it to attack me. So I'm just saying that, like, where is the incivility coming from? When you ask a super PAC that wants to take our tax dollars and send them somewhere else to kill women and children, and then in the most cynical way, put $10 million, $15 million behind attack ads saying I'm somehow disrespectful to women, where's the disrespect to women? Or are we saying that the lives of some people don't matter enough? Because the lives of the people I'm worried about are the people who are not able to afford basic things, good schools, functional infrastructure, healthcare, whose money is being sent somewhere else because people like Haley Stevens vote to do it. Why? Because they take money from the exact people who want that done. That's how this process works. And it's the thing I think most people are just sick and tired of about Washington, D.C. It's the thing I'm running to fix. I'm running on three things: money out of politics, money in your pocket, Medicare for all. Until we get the money out of politics, you're going to continue to see people lying to your face about the money that they take, and then doing the bidding for the corporations who are nickel and diming us at every turn. I don't take their money for a reason, because I don't want to be bought off by them, because I want to work for people.
Because the Congresswoman is trying to target your personal finances on this campaign trail, just a sec.
Or the fact that I'm a podcast host, right?
Just a sec. Just
guys,
to set the
don't
record
ever host a podcast. It's like a terrible idea. All right. I mean, I know you guys are journalists.
Is there any money in podcasting?
I mean, you tell me, man. You're journalists, right? You're journalists. Like, just don't host the podcast, because then some enterprising politician come after you. Like, I mean, it'd be an awful thing if you actually spent time, I don't know, educating people about public health like our podcast did. That's a terrible, terrible thing, I'm sure.
But what would you say is the highest valued asset in your possession right now?
I don't know. Like, I don't sit here and think about it. And I'll just tell you that, like, people are going to pay attention to, like, just properties that literally my wife's family inherited and then put in their and all of their kids' names and then sold. And people are out here being like, oh, well. And I wonder why they're so focused on foreign properties with somebody with a name like mine. Do you think it might fit within a well-worn trope? I don't know. I'll let you guys make that consideration.
Why are people so angry? You said that at the debate when they booed her, it had nothing to do with your supporters. There were a lot of your supporters that were.
No, listen, we told our supporters straight up, we don't boo anyone. And as soon as it happened, I called the Congresswoman. I told her that was unkind. And our people were under very, very, very strict directions. We are not going to be unkind to anybody, because this is a campaign about hope in the future. I think what you saw is a deep well of frustration at a congressperson who's willing to get up and lie to you, who's not willing to answer your basic questions, who doesn't actually want to talk about the things that people want to talk about. And I think that's what you saw. Now look, I don't think that's kind. I don't think that's how we should do politics. I have told my supporters, do not make fun of the congresswoman, because that's not helpful. We keep it on issues. We talk about issues. Now, I'm just saying, I told you at the front of this debate that my opponent was going to talk about me and talk about her, and I was going to talk about the people. And at every turn, every single question was an opportunity for her to take a dig at me, was an opportunity for her to take a dig at the fact that I hosted a podcast, was her an opportunity to take a dig because I write books. I didn't know that was a problem, right? But apparently, we don't want a senator who communicates with the public, and we don't want a senator who writes books about the things that they actually want to get done. Like, that's somehow an attack. I just think that at some point, like, you're seeing a campaign flail in real time. And we built this campaign from the ground up. I've been to 475 public events, the kind where we answer questions. Sam, you've been to a lot of them. You know that when the hands go up, I don't pick. I'm just like, hey, whoever it is, got questions, I got answers. Because I'm not afraid of the voters. I try to be transparent about what I run on, what I believe in. When the questions were asked today, I answered policy solutions, not attacking my opponent. But, you know, at the end of the day, like, this has just been the most cynical campaign. When you ask $60 million coming in from all of the folks who want to corrupt our politics to come in here and buy a U.S. Senate seat and then have the audacity to say that somehow you're the most electable, I'm so sorry. Like, electability doesn't need a $60 million crutch. Like, if you need $60 million to get out the primary yourself, and I want everybody here to ask, do you think that $60 million materializes in the general election? Because here's the thing, who's paying for it? Well, we don't know, number one, but big pharma, big tech, DTE, Blue Cross, and guess what? Who else are they funding? Mike Rogers. So they don't care which one of them win. So you're going to see $60 million come in here in a primary, and if they can eke it out, that guess what? All that money that was the crutch is gone in the general. Now we're supposed to talk about electability. I always believed that democracy was about government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Actually inspiring people to come out to be a part of a politics they believe in. Now, you know, I didn't know holding big rallies was a problem, but I would think that that's actually a good asset in politics. When you can get 3,000 people in Grand Rapids to show up for a rally, that's a good thing. Because if they're willing to come into a rally, guess what else they're willing to do? Go out and vote and knock doors and phone bank. So I just want government to actually work. Now ask yourself this, the last point I'll make. Imagine there was no outside spending in this race. None. Would we be having a conversation about an even competitive race? Imagine there was none. I'd be happy to have no outside spending at all on my behalf if it meant that $60 million wasn't spent against us. What would this race be? And then you have the audacity to say you're electable? Come on, let's get serious.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve from Rolling Stone, we talked a few years ago.
Yeah, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
And it looks like we are just wrapping up the Reaction Room Live with both candidates, but our Reaction Room continues. This time on the viewer side of things, we want to know your thoughts. What happened? What do you think? Who do you think's going to win? And also, who won tonight's Democratic debate? We have a poll question for you right now so that we can hear your thoughts and see what you think. Was it Congresswoman Haley Stevens or was it Dr. Abdul El-Sayed that won tonight's debate? Also here to break down who he thinks might have won the debate is Dr. Peter Trumbore from Oakland University, professor and chair of the Department of Political Science. Dr. Trumbore, good to have you join us in the studio today.
Thanks for having me.
So you watched this debate here on Fox 2. Who won? Biggest question. Everyone's wondering.
Yeah, so that's actually a question I don't like. Because to me, it's not about winning and losing in a sort of a horse race sense. It's about how well did the candidates do in getting their message across? How well did they do in drawing a contrast, not just between themselves, but between themselves and their likely opponent in November in the general election? And I think on that score, I think the two candidates did a good job. Both of them did a good job in terms of drawing contrasts between them. I think Congresswoman Stevens did a better job of pointing out why she thinks she would be the better candidate to take on Mike Rogers in November, which is frankly an issue that El-Sayed really didn't get to until the last few seconds of the debate itself, right? And so I think on that score, I think it was a good night for both candidates. I think the statistic you had earlier about this hasn't really changed a lot of people's positions on who they plan to support. I tend to look past the primary to think about who was likely to be a stronger general election candidate come November. And I think the viewers may have gotten a pretty good sense of who they think that might be.
Now, I do want to get into some of our viewer questions. These were posted on our tag board, hashtagged on X. And Dr. Trumbore, I want you to help me with some of the reaction here. I'm going to read some of this right now on our live coverage right here. One person named Jake writes, "It's fairly obvious Dr. Abdul El-Sayed will defeat Haley Stevens in next week's Michigan Democratic Senate primary. The question now is, by how much?" Now, given this question by a viewer, is there a defining moment that may have stuck with viewers with Dr. El-Sayed?
So I think that commenter is probably being wildly optimistic. However, I think one of the key points that El-Sayed was trying to hammer home was this idea that Stevens is in the pocket of corporate interests and is in the pocket of these outside donors who have flooded the race with money. And it is true, an unprecedented amount of money has been spent on this primary so far. And this seems to be the primary, the key point of contrast that he's drawing with Congresswoman Stevens, is that she's taken all this outside money, and that means that she's not going to stand up for Michiganders. And the counter is, I haven't taken any, at least not from corporate interests, and therefore, I'll be working for the people of Michigan. The problem with that narrative is that she's got 4 terms in the House of Representatives she can point to and say, here are the concrete things that I have in fact delivered. So I'm not sure that commenter is, say, a neutral party. That sounds like the kind of thing that someone who has already decided that their vote's going to go for El-Sayed would toss into a public message board.
I do have a lot more questions coming in from our viewers, but before we get to some of the rest of them, is there a moment during this debate that will end up in national headlines tomorrow?
Oh, I don't think so, and that's a good thing, right? Because typically, if there is some slip or some pithy remark, it tends to be superficial, and it tends to be sort of a rage bait, clickbait, meme bait kind of moment. And I was frankly happy to see that both candidates seemed pretty sober and serious about the message they were trying to deliver. And to me, that's a good thing, right? I don't turn on debates for the theatrics, as theatrical an environment as it can be. And so, to my mind, if there's no soundbite that is going to dominate tomorrow's coverage, that's a good thing. That's a good thing, I think, for the quality of the debate.
Now, also, Dr. Trumbore, as a professor who's done a lot of political science coverage, especially here even at Fox 2, was there a moment where you said these candidates just keep going at it, but they don't have results? They don't have the receipts. I know we've heard Congresswoman Haley Stevens saying, "I've got the receipts." We heard Dr. El-Sayed saying, "We're going to change things and we're going to get rid of corruption." How? How are you doing this? We want to see the how.
Yeah, and I think that's an important question. I do think that the Congresswoman has a better chance to make the case that she has, in fact, delivered. She has a record that she can point to. She has a record of bills that she sponsored, bills that she's voted for, bills that she's passed, that she can say, look, this is what you've hired me to do as your representative, and this is what I've done. And, and El-Sayed does not have a record like that. Now, that's not to say that he was not effective in his roles with Wayne County and the city of Detroit. But that's a very different kind of arena in which, the stakes are, as important as they are, they're different. And so I think, especially when you look at some of the things that El-Sayed was talking about, Medicare for all, retiring the nation's medical debt, abolishing ICE, the key question, whether you think those are great ideas or not, the key question is, how are you going to do it?
Yeah.
And how are you going to do it in a Senate in which, in the debate, El-Sayed advocated getting rid of the filibuster, which is frankly the only tool that the minority in the chamber has to derail the policy plans of the majority, right? And so it's great to get rid of the filibuster if you are in the majority, but don't have enough votes to overcome it. It's another thing to be the minority party, hoping to be the majority, and advocating for that position. It's a little bit ironic that Donald Trump has been calling for the elimination of the filibuster as well. So to hear El-Sayed talk about it tonight, after we heard President Trump talking about getting rid of the filibuster yesterday and today, as some irony to it. That said, getting rid of the filibuster has long been a dream of political figures on left and right, because they recognize, right, that they can get more done if they have a very slim majority than if they have to get 60 votes. But 60 votes requires that policies be bipartisan if they're going to get through the Senate. And I think that's a good thing for our democracy.
Dr. Trumbo, I also want to ask you, because there were two pivotal moments that kept coming up. One of them was Congresswoman Haley Stevens taking money from DTE. That was one thing that kept coming up about campaign money, the finance system. And it seemed like even when our very own Roop Raj asked her about the money, it just seemed like the answer wasn't given effectively. It wasn't a yes or no response right away. With that being said, we also had Dr. El-Sayed, who wasn't answering really the tax returns and whether or not he said he delivered them. But did we really see them? And then he mentions that his wife was also on the tax returns, and that's why Congresswoman Stevens is a non-millionaire as opposed to him. Now, with that being said, and the two candidates, for someone who is on the fence about who to vote for, is one situation maybe perhaps worse than the other when it comes to a voter who's undecided?
And that's an interesting question. So let's start with El-Sayed. What he has said is that he's done all of the required financial disclosures. That's not the same as releasing your tax returns.
We haven't seen them.
Right. That's not the same as releasing tax returns, which goes into much more granular detail about the sources of your income and all that sort of stuff than a campaign financial disclosure form will. So I think that's a point of vulnerability. And that said, is that going to matter to voters when push comes to shove? I don't know. Stevens has said, yes, I do take all this outside money. I don't necessarily want to, trumpet the fact that some of it might be coming from public utilities. But she said, when she said in sort of the spin room that, yes, I take this money because I want to win the Senate seat. And unfortunately, in our system, the Supreme Court has decided that money equals speech. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that both candidates talked about the necessity of campaign finance reform, to my mind, is a good thing. The fact that Stevens talks about putting forward legislation to essentially ban members of Congress and members of the administration from insider trading is long overdue, right? And the unspoken accusation from El-Sayed is that because Stevens takes corporate money, then she is a puppet of the corporate masters. And I don't know that you can actually draw that clear line. You would have to take a deep dive into what her actual legislative record is. So he gets away with this sort of accusation of corruption without being able to sort of really point it out and say, okay, and here is exactly where we see that quid pro quo, rear its ugly head. So he implies it's there because she takes outside money, but where is the moment where he says, and here's the piece of legislation that proves that she is sort of a dishonest bad actor.
Now, Dr. Trumbo, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to continue this reaction room. We want anyone watching to also react. Let us know who you think won tonight's Democratic debate. I know, Dr. Trumbo, you're not a fan of who's the winner here.
Right.
Because there's really no winner. It's just who our thoughts kind of go and lean with the most, but we want to hear the viewers. We want to know what they're saying. We also want them to chime in. So join us, scan the QR code, take that poll question, join us on Twitter or X, and let us know your thoughts. Is there a question you want answered? Because coming up, we're going to take a quick break, but we're going to hear from our very own Roop Raj, who was in the debate, moderating it all, what his thoughts were. Were the questions answered? Did we hear what we wanted to hear? And are voters ready to vote next Tuesday? Local, we continue this reaction room live after a very eventful Democratic debate right here, Senate side of things. And our very own Roop Raj was moderating it all, and he's joining me now to talk more about this. Roop, I got to get down and dirty. Who do you think won?
You know what?
I know I catch you off guard.
My phone, the alarm is going off because we have all these things to do. And the reason the alarm went off is because I'm supposed to be with you. So I'm trying to turn the alarm
good,
off.
because you're also supposed to be on national...
We're on live now in 10 minutes. So let me just turn these alarms off. Listen, here's the deal. There are moments in a debate like this where one candidate is winning. And like a sports game, the first quarter, the second quarter, the third quarter, the fourth quarter. Unlike a sports match, there is no final score that can universally be told. And here's why. The first quarter may have been more important to one audience. It cared more about education or healthcare. The second quarter may have been more critical than ever before to those who care about the happenings in the Middle East. And for them, whoever came out on top at that topic, that moment, is the one who won the debate. Everyone out there, Ronya, has been seeking something out of these two candidates that they have not been able to deliver via social media or on political ads, because those are sound bites. We were able to have an hour-long conversation with two people who want a very important job in our country.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the campaigns. There was a lot of attacking, right? I mean, we saw a lot of this ad after ad, listening to Ogre being thrown out there, listening to other things about Dr. El-Sayed and women. And so there was a lot that has been said out in the public. So now that we're hearing from both in the same room, it's almost like they had to clear up things. I didn't mean to say this, and I didn't say that. So what were your thoughts there?
I thought it was important because this is the only forum where you're going to have that kind of clarification. You know, you talked about that ogre on a pike comment that apparently Dr. El-Sayed made on a Zoom call with campaign folks in which he was talking about John Fetterman, not Haley Stevens. He made that distinction, but it called into question the tenor and the mood of a campaign and how one should be moving forward, and challenging Dr. El-Sayed to ask the question, perhaps it was alluded to in those ads, is there a better way forward than with mudslinging? And so the question and the answer were right there in front of everyone to say. To hear and to see. And I think it's really important that people are able to not only listen to the answers, but not in sound bites, but rather to watch their faces. I have a feeling that most people make their decisions not just on answers that you could read somewhere, but based on how they reacted and the tenor of this particular debate.
As far as substance versus style, is there one candidate that you think was a little bit more prepared than the other?
I think both were equally prepared in their own way. I think Congresswoman Haley Stevens was prepared to defend 4 terms as a congresswoman, whereas Dr. El-Sayed was prepared to defend having not been in those hallowed chambers and really kind of defending himself and purporting himself to be an outsider, which is something that he takes pride in. You know, when he talks about corporate PACs, when he talks about government agencies that are inflated and where too much money is spent, he can easily point his finger at Haley Stevens and say, it's people like her who sat in that building doing that. If I got into that building, here's what I would do. But let's think about it for a moment. It's purely aspirational for someone who's never been in a building to propose change that they want to see without knowing how things work. That being said, the President of the United States is someone before 2016 who had never stepped foot, perhaps in the Capitol or in the White House. But having been an outsider, brought about ideas that his followers will tell you are working well. So being an outsider is not a bad word. The question that I had was, are you a progressive? Are you a socialist? What are you anyways? And the answer was pretty clear. I'm not a socialist, but I am someone who is sick of the way things work in Washington.
Now, here's something that I sometimes have an issue with when I listen to these debates is you often hear, we're going to do this. We're going to change this. We're changing the whole thing. Medicare is going to help people pay off their debt. Sure. Affordability is going to be a lot easier. Consumers are going to save money at the gas pump, blah, 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 right? Now, I haven't seen how this is going to happen. We've heard that they have the receipts, but where are they? And is this something that the Pulse can fact check? Because we want to know before we vote, okay, if you're going to fix the situation, how and when?
Here's the deal. The receipts are there. When you look at, if you go right now to the federal government website and to the to any, you can read the Senate bills, you can read the congressional bills, you know which ones have been passed, which ones have not. And I do look at that pretty often. I will say for instance, for the receipts that Congresswoman Haley Stevens was talking about, those receipts exist. However, those receipts exist based on the things that she was able to get past, not necessarily answering the question that was asked. So it's complicated because when I say to you, hey, Ronya, were you able to pull off doing your entire hour podcast without a problem? You could say, I have receipts. I have the hour tape with me. But if the question was something else and you answered it by saying, I was able to pull off an hour-long podcast, that wasn't what I was asking you. And so oftentimes in these debates, to get into the weeds with some of these folks does take away from the time, and it's precious time. You have an hour to try to unpack issues from Iran and Israel to healthcare to education to data centers. How do you do it while trying to stay on a topic to make sure they answer the question? But then at some point when they say, I have the receipts, you're right, we should go check.
I almost feel like, just to give you an idea here, when Dr. El-Sayed mentioned Medicare debt relief or a medical debt relief and how that was going to happen, well, who's going to pay for that? Is this going to come out of taxpayer dollars? Where's the money coming from?
Well, he would say, and as you kind of heard, we're spending, as the spending goes, we have a topic we didn't talk about, which I wish we did, which is we have a multi-trillion-dollar national debt right now. And whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, when you have an initiative that's important to you, you open up the coffers in the checkbook and you say, let's go. The problem is the money has to come from somewhere. I heard Congresswoman Haley Stevens talk a little bit about how she believes that some of, unlocking some of the grant money could help with some of the initiatives. Dr. El-Sayed also has some ideas about where to unpack that money. He talked about defunding ICE. Yeah, how much money.
I loved your analogy. You said, isn't that similar? If you abolish ICE, isn't that similar to defunding the police?
Well,
I loved the way.
Well, I think it's an important question to follow up with. Isn't it the same? And he had in the past talked about how he did at one point say defund the police, but then walk that back. Well, if you're talking about abolishing ICE, are you doing the same thing? But the bottom line is he's talking about a $70 billion savings there. Excuse my voice. Been talking for a while.
You did a lot of moderating. Can we get Roop a water?
We'll get a
water for Roop.
But if you talk about $70 billion unlocked from the budget for ICE, then what can you do with that? You can do other things with it. So it is about, moving things around, and that's something that with the purse strings, these Congress people and these senators have to do. And with that, I ran out of my voice.
While you're trying to get your voice back and while we're getting some H2O on the call right now, emergency H2O, there is a React Now QR code, and that's because we want people to connect with us. A lot of this has to do with tonality. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear and feel what you think. Did this debate go the way you thought it would? Did it sway your vote? Are you ready to vote Tuesday? We did see a big percentage of people saying they are ready to vote on Tuesday. Probably, I think it was 77% at last check. We've had thousands of people taking our poll question. The most recent one was also who won the debate. And I know this is not, Roop, you're not a fan of this poll question because it is pretty difficult to call out a winner here.
It's good to hear from people,
but,
though. I want to know what people think.
Yeah, we want to hear what you're thinking. And, now we're in the 90s, that 90-some% believe that Dr. Abdul El-Sayed has won this debate. So is there something that you want to chime in on?
I think we're at 9:28.
Yeah, you got 1 minute, Ruth.
No, here's the thing. It's been an hour since the debate ended. If you're still watching the stream with Ronya, it's not because alone Ronya is awesome, which she is, and I'd watch the stream for that.
Thank you.
Ronya's great. But the reason you're still watching is because you're looking for an alternative to what's already in Washington.
Yes.
You're really curious about what else is out there. So the majority of people who may be watching right now may be El-Sayed fans. The moderates or the establishment Democrats may have watched the debate, watched a little bit of reaction, already said, I already made up my mind, and turned the TV off. And by the way, if the shoe was on the other foot, I'd probably say the same thing. There's reasons people stick with coverage like this. They're still curious. They're still wondering. They're still thirsty. They're hungry for something. They want something outside of what they keep hearing in these commercials, going back to our original conversation about wanting something different. And I'll tell you one thing. I'm proud of our I say television station, but our media company, Fox 2, because of what we were able to do today. This was not a stodgy old school debate. This is a conversation with two people who want a really important job, and our job was to make sure that we unpack it for people And Roni, you're doing that right now.
Thank you, Roop. We appreciate you. I know you got to get to live now for more coverage nationally. So we'll let you go do that. Roop, we appreciate you. In the
Thank you,
meantime,
Roni.
of
Good work.
course. In the meantime, we're going to continue our side of things here. We want to hear from you. Again, we have the poll question. We also have the React Now QR code on the right side of your screen. Join us. I'm also going to be reading some of your comments. We'll have more on the other side. All right, we're back, and I do want to mention we have some people joining us now in the Zoom room. We're going to take you guys in just a bit, so don't hang up. Keep it here. We have our engineers working to get you on the show right now because we want to hear from you. We can sit here and talk about post-debate coverage, but I want to know what you're thinking. Did you think this debate went the way you were hoping? Are you going to change your vote on Tuesday? We have a lot to break down. One of the people that is behind this debate and really all the debates we've covered right here on Fox, joining me now is our wonderful Aaron Jordan, digital producer, digital anchor, and our fact checker, and so much more. Aaron, thanks for joining us.
A lot of hats. Thank you.
You do it all.
So do you, though, Roan. Thank you so much. Appreciate you having me on. I mean, it was something that was really rewarding for us to put together because Root put it best where it wasn't the old debate format. It was a conversation. And the big takeaway for me, I think, from that was I think viewers were able to learn a lot more about these candidates, who they are and where they stand. Yes, there was a lot of attacking about records. Yes, there was a lot of attacking about campaign funds. But you heard a lot of substance in there as well. And I think that's really going to be important as we're just days away from the election now.
Absolutely. Aaron, I'm just checking in with our producers. I believe we might have a call coming in right now from one of our viewers. Is that a call ready? Okay, let's hear from one of our callers right now via Zoom. Hello, it's Ronia joining me now live in our reaction room. Give us your name and let us know what you're calling about.
Joining me now is our wonderful Aaron Jordan, digital producer, digital anchor, and our fact checker, and so much more. Aaron, thanks for joining us. You do it all.
So do you, though, Rum.
Yeah, there might be a little bit of a delay here, but we'll get to that caller in just a sec. Now, here's the thing. We're doing the calls. We're doing our TAG board. We're listening, and we're trying to read all these questions and comments that are coming in. While we're doing that, I know our engineers are still working on this side. Aaron, is there something that really set the tone to tonight's debate? Because there were a lot of attacks. However, were there questions that got answered?
I think there were. I think the affordability is what we let off with, and that's because that's really what people are caring about out there, right? Like, that's what everybody is talking about in this election, and really just politics in general, that things are so expensive at this point, and the fact that if you go back to the Republican gubernatorial debate, when the candidates started really attacking each other about super PACs, who was funding the campaign, Root brought it around and was like, that's not what the viewers care about out there. They care about affordability. They care about data centers. They care about so many other things.
How much we're paying at the pump.
Yes,
There's
exactly.
A lot of things.
The Iran war, and that is really that is really what we wanted to set the tone with tonight, is really setting the table for these economic conversations and really what people are caring about in general. I will tell you, from the viewer participation standpoint, you're getting a lot on the polls here. Yeah. By the end of the debate, we had 1,500 text questions coming into our text line.
Now, and you're reading these one by every single text.
Yeah, they're coming in. So think of a Google spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet. That's where they all populate. So they are coming in fast and furious during the debate.
We're talking 1,500 texts. At last check, this poll question, thousands of people had voted. Thousands.
Okay.
I think at last check it was over 3,000.
That's amazing.
Amazing. And to see, now, Roop had a point. I know a lot of the viewers voted, 90-some% said that Dr. Abdul had won this debate, but it could just also be a reflection of who's watching.
It could be.
We don't know, but this is why we do these things. I know our engineers right now are working to get our Zoom callers on this show. And here are some of the other questions that are coming through Tag Board.
Let's hear them.
One of them, this isn't swaying one side or the other, but this is from Maui on X, and Maui writes, watching the Michigan Democratic Senate debate, and both sides are bombing, but Haley Stevens is definitely doing worse, but I don't know if it even matters right now. Now, I'm only bringing this up, not because we're trying to pick one over the other, but I think a lot of people, and I'm going to click on some of these other ones, a lot of people seem like they can't decide whether it's Stevens or El-Sayed.
Well, and I've spoken to people, excuse me, about the fact that they were waiting for this debate to decide who to vote for. And you look at the races for governor versus this race for Senate, where there's a pretty clear front runner in those races for governor on both the Republican and the Democratic side. But there's so much attention on this race right now because it is the most competitive in Michigan, but also the future of not only the Senate, but also really maybe the Democratic Party is at stake here. You have a more moderate candidate in Congresswoman Haley Stevens versus the progressive in Dr. El-Sayed. If a progressive can win Michigan, that might flip what people are saying about Democrats and which faction of that wins out as well.
Now keep the comments coming in on X. I think our engineers got our Zoom calls rolling here. Let's see now if our Zoom caller can hear us live. Hello, it's Ronya from the Reaction Room. Can you hear us?
Hello, I can hear you.
Tell us your name and what you thought about tonight's debate.
My name's Steve. In terms of tonight's debate, I feel like it went the way that I thought it would. For me, money, in terms of big money, corporate interests in politics is the biggest issue. It has been for. And I was maybe in my teens when Citizens United got passed. I saw the progression of how politics has changed since then, and I've seen that it's changed for the worse. And I've seen the rift in community in terms of what politics has done. And I think that corporate money is the biggest issue. So for me, it's always been El-Sayed as the choice because I see somebody who I can trust doesn't take the money to write the legislation that is paid for by them. And so I loved it. I think this was awesome.
I do want to ask you, have you voted in a primary before? And also, have you already put your vote in prior to listening to tonight's debate for this primary?
Awesome question. Yeah, I have voted in primaries before. I actually voted for Abdul El-Sayed in the gubernatorial primary for Michigan. And I have not put my vote in yet. I will go to the polls on Tuesday, and at that point, I'll already be voting for the person I had decided had my vote before the debate.
Stephen, Aaron Jordan here. We appreciate you tuning in. I did want to ask you about where you were saying politics are headed at this point. Talking about really seeing more a movement toward these progressive Democratic candidates. Are you concerned that in a swing state like Michigan, if Dr. El-Sayed comes out of the primary, that maybe he won't fare so well against Mike Rogers, or do you think he has a good chance still?
I think it comes down to younger people. I think that the establishment politics in terms of the Democratic Party has soured the view of the Democratic Party in the sense that I think turnout's been lower. I think people have been less excited to vote. I think that there are other candidates that had better platforms that spoke to the American people that actually really inspired people to go out to the polls. And I think that candidates like El-Sayed bring that back. And I think that you see that happening in New York City, you see it happening in other states across the country. And I think that the message is there. And I feel like people are really ready for change. And that's how I feel.
Stephen, we appreciate you taking the time to call us, giving us your input on tonight's debate. We hope that you always keep it here on Fox 2. We're going to continue checking in with other viewers as well, so we appreciate your time. I do want to get to other callers right now. Our next caller is also coming to us live right now. We have, I believe it's Evan Carroll, who's joining us now live via Zoom. Evan, if you can hear me, will you let us know?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I sure can. I am grateful that you could take the time to join us today. What are your thoughts?
Anytime. I didn't even know what a Michigander was 3 months ago, but I'm all about Abdul. I'm watching this, and he's killing it. I'm a Jew here from Houston, and I was watching the debate tonight. I'm glad to see him out there. I'm glad to see him helping resist that $50 million of AIPAC money. I wish him the best. We stand with Abdul.
So is there something that really set you to call us today? Was it a remark during the debate? Was it something that you really expected to come out? Or were you just like, you know what, it's time Michigan knows better?
I mean, I think it's time we get AIPAC's money out of elections. That's all that it really amounts to. We have an active genocide going on. We have one person who's saying something, actually taking a stand against it, and the other person is pocketing $50 million to try to win an election. It's pathetic. Michigan deserves better. The United States deserves better. We have a better solution. So I'm glad to see it happening. And, I think that I speak for the whole nation. It may be one of those toss-ups for Michigan, but certainly, there's a movement that's being tapped into here.
Evan, I gotta ask you. You said you're from Houston, right?
I am, yeah.
So I gotta ask you, just for my own curiosity, we appreciate you watching. What is driving your interest in this race in Michigan?
Simple. I mean, I watch candidates all over the nation get defeated by AIPAC, one after another. And the fact that this is even a close election, and I think it is actually a close election, is pathetic. But, I mean, you watch Thomas Massey lose his election, that's $30 million. I'm not a Republican, but that hurts, You watch one candidate after another go down, and now you have them all kind of uniting against Haley Stevens, and rightfully so. You've got Jamal Bowman on it, Cori Bush is back. I don't know if any of these candidates, would stand on their own, but I think it says something that the only reason why these candidates are losing is because of a genocidal foreign power. And right now we have a clear choice. Who do you want to pick?
Also, Evan, we appreciate your time and the fact that you're joining us today from Houston. It just goes to show that our viewers come in from all over. Is there something specific? I know you mentioned, foreign policy, but is there something specific you really want to let Michigan know? Any message?
I mean, I think that you have a foreign war going on right now. Come the end of this year, that foreign war will have mandatory and automatic registration of every male in the United States in a draft. I mean, you have a president that clearly wants to take you to war with Iran. You have one person who's going to do anything that Israel requests, and you have another person that clearly has the ability to stand up for Israel. You want to get drafted and go fight a war in Iran? I mean, for me, that's definitely a huge part of it. Do you think that it's worth sending your money to kill Palestinian kids? That's a huge part of it. I'm a Jew in Houston. I can tell you this is absolutely, for me, a foreign policy issue. It's a national sovereignty issue. I mean, it's very clear, and this is not just about who's the most progressive candidate.
Evan, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time. We appreciate you watching our Reaction Room live coverage here on Fox, and we certainly hope you continue watching with us. We're going to continue our post-debate coverage. As you see, people tuning in from all over to listen in, to chime in, and really let us know their thoughts. We might even have more callers coming in. I know our engineers are working. We have calls coming in. We have messages as well. Do we have another caller joining us right now? We do. We're going to work on getting that caller live right now. Once they come up on our screen, we'll listen in and see the reaction here. Can you give us your name?
Hey, Ronya and Aaron, it's Tyler from Ferndale. And honestly, now after seeing tonight's debate, I'm really even more undecided because I vote in every election. But one thing that I really want to know from both sides is how, if elected, how they're going to actually, serve, especially marginalized communities and like underserved communities, especially like the LGBTQIA plus community. I need to know more,
That's certainly something that did not come up in tonight's debate. However, the one person that's been tracking all the political forefronts is digital journalist Aaron Jordan. Aaron, given that question, has there ever been a discussion about the LGBT community on either end here, whether it's Dr. Abdul or Congresswoman Stevens?
I do remember both candidates really talking about the anti-transgender rhetoric, in particular coming from the Trump administration, really standing against that. I was watching the debate out of Grand Rapids on Wood TV. That topic really didn't come up there either. So I'm not sure that there's been a lot of discussion on that specific point at this point. I did want to ask you, because you were saying you were more undecided after tonight's debate. Was there a moment that made you more undecided?
Not anything in particular. I think I'm still continuing my research as we get closer, so I'll definitely be hitting the polls in person, but not a specific moment from tonight, at least.
Also, is there a moment where you kind of decided maybe I got to learn more about this particular policy, whether it was about ICE or immigration, affordability, or anything manufacturing related, anything that might have been a lot more pressing as well?
I think with, like seeing like these major corporate companies that are supporting these candidates, I think that's going to lean me one way or the other, like knowing who's actually donating and helping fund these campaigns.
Absolutely. We appreciate your call. Certainly one of the conversations that we need to continue with all the candidates, ahead of the primary, and certainly is something we hope that you continue communicating with us as well here on Fox 2. We appreciate you calling in. We're going to continue checking in with other callers, other comments. We actually have another person right now. Calls are coming in. We're trying to get everyone on the line here before this show wraps up. We now have Zachary Lambert, who is joining us now live. Zachary, what city are you from?
Hi, I'm a Macomb Township resident from Macomb County, about 30 minutes north of Detroit.
Zachary, talk to us about tonight's debate. What were your thoughts? And is there something that really may have concerned you or maybe answered all your questions?
I thought it was addressed pretty well. In my opinion, I was not particularly a fan of the way the Congresswoman was kind of dodging that question about the DTE money. I'm an 18 I just turned 18 back in February. This will be my first election I'll be voting in. I'm super concerned about the role of corporate money in our politics. And when I see so much money being poured into one person's campaign, I find it a major cause of concern.
I'm glad you brought this up, and this is why I have to give gratification to our Roop Raj, because if you notice during the debate, he asked the same question multiple times when that came up, and he said, well, can you please answer the question that was given to you? So I think it wasn't until the third time when the question was answered, did that help you as far as who you need to vote for next week?
Yes, I, along with many other younger people that I know, plan on voting for Dr. El-Sayed because of his stance on getting money out of politics. It's something that I've found to be a cause of concern even prior to knowing who he was or even thinking about the midterm election. I was very thankful when I saw him bring it up. I think that it was glossed over a little bit more than I would have liked during that first debate, or the debate previous to this one. So I'm glad that it was brought up again multiple times.
And that's why we wanted to host this reaction room. We really want to hear a lot of your thoughts to generate the conversation. Were there key points that may have changed your decision or really may have made you go and say it's time for me to vote? With that being said, Zachary, we appreciate you taking the time to Zoom with us. Get on here and let us know your thoughts. I hope you'll always keep it here on Fox 2. And yeah, keep us in the loop. Make sure you constantly tune in and give us your little feedback.
Yeah, thank you for talking to voters. I appreciate that.
Oh, we appreciate you. And that's why we do this coverage, Reaction Room Live. It's all about talking to the voters, listening to their questions, and really trying to gain a lot of their answers. I want to bring back our digital journalist, Aaron Jordan. Aaron, what are your thoughts here? A lot of people have some mixed reaction.
In the DTE and the utilities question did come up in the spin room, Roan. And first off, great job anchoring this show and the coverage of that as well.
It was brought up again in the spin room.
And she said, and she made it a point to say, well, that was before my Senate campaign.
Yes.
So really seemingly trying to distance herself from that donation versus what her campaign is now, but then turning it back around to, look, I'm in this race to defeat Mike Rogers. That's what Congresswoman Haley Stevens was saying. So it really was kind of an interesting, her getting pressed on that, not only by our Roop Raj, but also in the spin room afterward as well.
Absolutely. One of the key things I've mentioned during this entire debate show is we have the receipts. Well, where are they? We want to see them. We want to know them. We want to hear about them. And whether it's either side, either candidate, I think it's very important to directly answer questions. Let the viewers know. Let the if someone's asking you about a certain specific question, just get to the point. I think that's why with Roop it took, I think, the third attempt in the spin room. I don't know which media outlet had asked.
I don't remember either.
We had multiple.
But
actually, while I have you here, Aaron, do you know how many media outlets we had here? I mean,
we
had
had around 10, I want to say, maybe. It was a good amount, but I mean, like, the New York Times, Rolling Stone, The Daily, that podcast from the New York Times
all
that comes out,
here, right?
all national.
That
Detroit
tells you a
News,
lot.
Detroit Free Press, Cranes, MLive, so many different outlets here. And again, I was hearing from my dad who texted me saying CNN took this off the top of their 9 o'clock show and talked about it as well. And it's a race that is getting such national attention because you look at how razor thin it was between now Senator Slotkin and former Congressman Mike Rogers back in 24. She barely eked out in a year that President Trump won Michigan. And Michigan truly is a purple state.
Sure.
A note that I found interesting when I was researching just our area in general, Macomb County has been more of a purple county over the last few years. When it's gone red in the presidential election, it's flipped blue in the midterm. So I think it's going to be interesting to see if that trend holds as well. But I will say this Senate race is getting so much interest, not only because of the factions I talked about earlier with progressive versus moderate Democrats. Control of Congress is on the line at this point, and this is a seat that has been really a stronghold for Democrats since 2000 when Senator Stabenow was elected into office. If Democrats want to take over the Senate once again, they need to hold on to this seat as well.
Also, before we end our reaction room live, this post show that we've been having a lot of fun with, because we have been able to hear what the people are thinking.
I want to give a shout out too, sorry, Roan,
Yeah,
to Zachary real quick as well for him voting in his first election. Anyone out there, younger, older, whatever the case may be, no matter what stripe of the political aisle you're on, get out and vote. That is our civic
Absolutely.
duty.
That's why we push this coverage, because we want to hear from voters. We want to hear from those who are like, I'm not going to vote. My voice doesn't matter. It matters. We want to hear your voice. We want to hear what you think and what you want to see. And as you see, before we end this reaction room coverage, who won tonight's debate? A lot of people going Dr. Abdul El-Sayed. Now, with that being said, again, we can't really make out who's voting here.
No, not at all.
But we will say thousands, right? Our engineers say thousands of people have placed their votes here. This isn't just a mini vote. Thousands. On top of it all, Aaron, I know you said we had over 1,500 texts coming in throughout the debate, and we have people chiming in on all four fronts. YouTube was a big one. I was reading
TikTok
a lot of
as well was getting them a
TikTok.
lot.
I was reading a lot of those comments, and a lot of people just seem like, why are we voting? Well, this is why. We do this because we want you to get down. We get down and dirty with all the topics here, right?
Deeper dives.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we have, a minute left? Do we have any more? Okay, so it looks like our engineers are wrapping up the Zoom. With that being said, is there going to be more coverage tonight on Fox 2?
100%. Coming up on the news at 10, the Edge at 11, we've got Dave Spencer, who's speaking with Peter Trumbore, who you spoke with a little earlier, Roan.
He didn't like my question. I said, who won? He said, I can't tell you. I don't like that question.
Well, so he's going to be talking to Dave Spencer. We'll see what questions Dave asks him. And then we also have...
Oh, Aaron, we got one more caller.
We
got to get the caller in before we wrap this show. Caller, can you please say your name and the city you're calling us from?
Can you hear us, Tyrone?
Can you hear us, Tyrone?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes. Talk to us. Where are you from and what'd you think?
I'm calling from Inkster. I think I was undecided until I actually watched the debate. I have to go with El-Sayed.
Was there a particular moment that drove you to supporting him?
You know, it was a lot of moments, especially the fact that Haley Stevens skirted a lot of questions. She never really gave specific answers, especially about the money. She went into Palestine and Israel. She went into Donald Trump. Something about DTE. She went somewhere else. So she never really, I think she killed herself by really not coming out straightforward and just answering the questions that were asked.
Tyrone, have you put your vote in or are you waiting till Tuesday?
I'm waiting till Tuesday.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you getting on the call here. We're happy we were able to squeeze you in. This has been certainly quite the debate here on Fox 2. And a lot of people seem to be chiming in about the same issues as far as what was being said. More questions than answers at this point. Tyrone, we appreciate your time.
Thank you. You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you. We appreciate it. All right. That concludes our Reaction Room Live right here on Fox 2. I'm your host, Ronya Shimona. We appreciate you all. Listen, keep it here, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, Threads. We are watching all of your questions. We love seeing your comments. And yes, we do read all of them. We try to. I'm going to be honest. So keep it here. Fox 2's The Edge begins at 10. And then we have, of course,
The news
I'm sorry, the news at 10, then The Edge at 11. It's been a long day, guys. I've been up since, I don't even remember. All right, we got a lot more coming up. Don't go anywhere.